Good evening, and welcome to the Raleigh Board of Selectmen meeting for December 8th, 2014. The time being 7 p.m., call the meeting to order. And as a reminder, this meeting is being audio and video recorded digitally. Dave, could you say the Pledge of Allegiance, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome.
Citizens' query will start at 7:05 and end at 7:15. And the chairman does have some comments tonight. I had the pleasure of participating in the Wreaths Across America today. They came through to Topsfield, and Selectman Snow and Selectman Peterson were there also, which made it very nice. And this year, we received the wreath from Wreaths Across America, and we're going to dedicate it to, or actually place it on the grave of U.S. Navy Ensign Ruth T. Pike. She was a graduate of the Deaconess Hospital class of 1942. She spent a year at the Massachusetts General Hospital before entering the U.S. Navy Nurse Corps in August 1943. In September of 1944, Ruth was home on furlough visiting her mother, Mrs. George Pike of Raleigh. She was to report for duty at Jacksonville, Florida, and planned to spend a few days with her brother, Scott Pike, also in the U.S. Navy. The people of Raleigh were saddened to learn of the death of Ensign Ruth T. Pike, U.S. NRNC, who was killed November 6, 1944, in a plane crash at Jacksonville, Florida, while in the service of her country. The American Red Cross Bronze Medal, which was awarded for highly meritorious service in time of war, was presented posthumously to Navy nurses who gave their lives in World War II. This award was presented to the next of kin of Ensign Ruth T. Pike in July 1946. So this year, the wreath that we're given today is going to be placed on her grave. So, and it was a great ceremony.
It really was. It's probably, just to add to that, probably twice the size it was last year, wouldn't you say, Bob?
Yes, yeah, it was really quite a few there. I hadn't seen that building that full for a long time.
No.
So, down at the Topsfield Fair.
Yeah, there were, about 15 tractor-trailer units
Yeah.
Yeah.
transporting, what did they say, 60,000 wreaths to the
Those are just going to Arlington.
Arlington National
And
Cemetery.
there's thousands more that are going across the country
Right.
to do exactly the same thing. So it's really quite an operation.
Quite a number of Gold Star mothers were there. It's quite moving. There was a woman who lost her brother, was a Medal of Honor winner,
Yes, yeah,
and her brother was 26 when he lost his life in, 44?
Yeah.
And he was U.S. Army, and
Christmas time, just before Christmas.
just before Christmas.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
she's now 85, 84.
And in his honor, was it last year, she parachuted out of an airplane?
Yes, that's right too. Yeah.
Just to honor him. That was quite interesting. It really was. And she's just a little bit of a thing. You know, she's probably about 5'4" or something like
About
that.
5'4".
Yeah, she's just barely makes the podium. And she was a character. She really
And
was.
that was General George Patton's granddaughter?
Daughter-in-law.
Daughter-in-law.
Yeah. And she gave
Granddaughter-in-law.
a very nice speech.
Yeah, she gave a nice
Very
speech
elegant.
from Hamilton. She's the last of the
Last the family.
family that's still around from
In that
from the
generation.
general, from that, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
She took a wreath and she would, she's gonna put it up in the, where she lives. And then she was saying that all the Gold Star mothers she had talked to, she had taken little cards and they had the home where she is. They place them in the windows.
yeah.
Wow.
She's
Very-
quite a
very
lady.
moving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very elegant.
Yeah, it's really a good time. So, it is after 7:05, so citizens' query is open. We have 3 appointments tonight, one at 7:15, Mike Sabatini to discuss Historic Commission, Historic District Commission opening. 7:25, Mike Sabatini and Conservation Agent Brent Baselak to discuss invasive species program at the Bradstreet property. And 7:35, Conservation Agent Brent Baselak for update on federal national pollution discharge elimination systems, NPDES's stormwater permit. So, do we want to go right to the Girl Scout land, Deb? Or do you want to wait till we get through with
He's
the?
in a meeting right now.
Okay, so we'll wait till after we get the appointments taken care of. So we'll move to new business number 1, and it's signed full-time police officer academy waiver application. Okay, the board needs to vote to authorize Chairman Robert Murray to sign the full-time police officer academy waiver application. This pertains to the newly appointed full-time officer, Daniel A. Lee. And we do have the application here.
I'll give you the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Give a second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. We can now go back up to new business item number 1. And it's memo from Treasurer Karen Summit regarding the senior tax credit and Valor Act credit compliance with IRS regulations. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, do you want to take care of general business number 2? It's just an informational,
Diabetes thing? Yep. New business, new business. It's right here.
Yep.
Number 2. Okay, thanks, Mom. Okay, this is from Stop Diabetes. Tour de Cure, I think it is. Okay. It says, "Hi Debbie, hope all is well. I am writing to express our appreciation to your town for supporting our North Shore Tour de Cure event for the American Diabetes Association. Our riders love making their way through the 22 cities and towns along the route and have always expressed their appreciation for the beautiful views and amazing routes and roads. I am sending this as an initial save the date for a tour next year, May 17th, 2015. While our routes are not yet finalized, they are in development and not expected to vary much from last year. A part of the commitment to ensure a safe and fun event, we would like to increase our safety reminder efforts with the support of your town. We plan to send out 22 emails, 1 per week beginning in December and leading up to the tour, with a safety tip brought to the riders by each town. For example, reminds you to wear your helmet and have a safe ride. If your town does not wish to partake in the safety initiative, please let me know at your earliest convenience and we may plan drafting our outreach accordingly. Look forward to a great North Shore tour season. Tara Greenlee." So I guess that's basically just a reminder to us. And I think we'll probably wait till we get the finalized tour so that we can plan our strategy at that point with the public safety officials okays on that. So, still got a couple of minutes. Why don't I go to new business 1? And that is from Karen Summit, Treasurer Collector, December 4th. And it's read the Senior Tax Credit Program. In order to comply with IRS regulations, Senior Tax Credit and Valor Act credit participants will now be classified as employees receiving W-2s. This will require the participant and town to pay Medicare taxes. In order to keep the participants' exemptions whole, I am requesting that the Board of Selectmen allow the town to pay both the town and the participant share of the Medicare tax. The total amount is approximately $110 and can be covered by the town's Medicare line in Article 5. So evidently the Uncle Sam has decided he wants to get a little more money out of
Hard to believe.
our elder
Always.
participants. So,
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
is there any other discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Could talk just about another minute, we would have been all set. Okay, we can squeak this one into new business number 2. Request from Water Board Commissioners to transfer funds from the extraordinary and unforeseen budget to water treatment plant. Maintenance for grading of Pingree Farm Road. Selectmen Bob Snow and Dave Peterson attended last week's Water Board meeting. They have been attending the meetings on a regular basis and will discuss this request with the board. Pingree Farm Road is in deplorable condition. Unfortunately, the water treatment plant construction bid specifications did not require the contractor to upgrade this narrow dirt road. Now we are faced with needing to improve the condition of the road. So you want to make a comment?
Mr. Chairman, I know that Mr. Snow and Mr. Peterson were at the water board meeting when this presentation was made.
Okay.
The superintendent did ask if she should appear tonight. I said no, because I know that, and actually Mr. Peterson is, just most recently went down the road, and I know Mr. Snow's been down that road several times in the past.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if you have time to talk about it tonight, but at this point, but I know that they can speak to this request.
Okay.
Yeah, I just, it's, if you go down that road, or even look down that road, it's obvious that the road's in deplorable condition. It's a lengthy, I don't know, I'm gonna say a half a mile, maybe not quite that much. It's all ruts and puddles and, et cetera, et cetera. And the problem there is that the trucks and stuff like that, that tractor trailers that deliver chemicals are not gonna keep driving back and forth in that road in the condition it's in.
Right.
I had checked with the highway department about, situation of plowing it, and they said they won't even plow it because it's so bad. So they've gotten a couple of bids, to fix the road up. And at that meeting, the water board kinda didn't have any answers on why the road wasn't included in the original project. I mean, it's when you look at it, it's really ridiculous that the road wasn't included. I mean, you got a $12 million plant and you can't get there from here.
Right.
Is basically what the problem is. So the problem they have is there's a very short period of time before the frost gets in too deep and they won't be able to do anything with it for the winter.
Right.
On top of that, they put a request in to the Conservation Commission that was handled the same night for an emergency repair to that road. That was granted with a couple of conditions, but basically to go a little further, the tenor of the whole meeting, the water board seems to have slipped back into harassing the superintendent at every turn, and they're debating issues that have nothing to do with anything other than there seem to be personal agenda items, and the big issues of the water treatment plant, hiring help. They seem to be quite upset that there was only one qualified candidate that they interviewed for the secondary water position, and they were upset because there wasn't 3 candidates to interview, and made a presentation that there weren't 3 qualified candidates that presented themselves, but that didn't seem to matter too much to them. They want to interview 3 people, whether they're qualified or not. So I would recommend, Bob, Mr. Snow can probably back me up or add to it, that the situation between the water board and the superintendent it's getting to be, as far as I'm concerned, an emergency situation, that if those 3, 1, 2, or 3 all, if they're not able to work with the superintendent, maybe it's time for them to resign, because at this time they're just an impediment to getting anything done. And every time we turn around, there's another issue being presented, and they have personal issues they want to take up at the meetings, and it would be my recommendation that we ask them to come in to our meeting next week and kind of explain what's going on up there, because I don't think we as a Board of Selectmen can allow this situation to continue. They've got numerous DEP violations now. The road situation, they still haven't got as hard as the superintendent's working on it, they're not giving her any support in terms of getting the permanent occupancy permits for the water treatment plant. She's trying to get the hydrants flushed, and big debate over do you or don't you, and they need to flush the system. So I suggest we bring them in and see what the story is, and kind of put it right to them. If they want to work and help the town and make this water system work, then we want them on board. But if they're not going to do that, they're just going to nitpick and harass and put roadblocks up for the superintendent to try and do the job, then maybe it's time for them to ask him to, resign or step aside or something, because it can't keep going like this. It's just anybody that wants to watch last week's meeting can see the tenor of the meeting and the fact that it's just, at this point, it's not working. So I'll let Bob wants to add anything.
Add to Selectman Peterson's comments. The road going in there is deplorable. It is. I'm very surprised that wasn't part of the bidding process when that plant was put in there. And when you drive down there, you drive down. It's got to be more than a quarter of a mile into where the plant is, and you have to drive up to the side of the road and then around because of the ruts. And it's deplorable.
There's a 6-mile-an-hour speed limit, and if you go 6 miles an hour, you're going to ruin your car.
Yeah, most definitely.
So.
And then when we talk about the water board, water department, and people have heard me for the last 4 years about this, banging the drum. We seem to take 1 step forward and 2 steps backward. I thought, not last week's meeting, the meeting before, I thought we were moving along. I thought we were making progress. And then last week, we just seemed to go into these petty little arguments that have nothing to do with the big issues before the town with the water treatment plant. I was just absolutely disgusted. If you go back, and if I ask people, please, to do this, go back, look at the last 3 water board meetings and watch them. It's very important to see. And you can see 2 meetings ago, you see Selectman Peterson and myself. We tore into the water commissioners, okay? And then the next meeting, things seemed to go along smoothly. And then last week, it just seemed to deteriorate again. And we're going off on petty items. We have a $12 million plant down there, needs to be addressed. We have a darn good superintendent. And I just don't understand where the commissioners are going. And I hope, and I ask you really, you people at home, for you to watch those water board meetings, the last 3, and get a flavor of what Selectman Peterson and myself go through when we go to these meetings. And we'll be attending this Tuesday meeting. It's very aggravating, and I think Dave has said it well. Maybe it's time for them to move on.
Well, given that report, I think we definitely need to bring them in and sit them down and talk to them. If somebody wants to make that the motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, the motion's made and seconded to request the water commissioners attend our next selectmen's meeting and give us an update on what's happening with the treatment plant, the road, and other issues that are still out there. Although, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, do we need to file a,
It's essential that we, since the road was not included as part of the construction, which I think we had sort of a perception that that was until we realized, and the fire chief brought it to your attention several times,
yep,
that it wasn't part of the construction. So it's deteriorating day by day. There are no funds set aside for this kind of work, and I think this is gonna be an ongoing upkeep. But right now, on a temporary basis,
we definitely need to
they
get it
need to
fixed.
have the emergency and unforeseen account money transferred as requested in the memorandum from the superintendent,
Okay,
so that they can start this work, because I'm not sure, there's no permanent occupancy permit. I know that 6 months ago, we were bringing this issue up. It's still a temporary occupancy permit, so the fire chief and the building inspector have not signed off yet, and access to that facility is so important that this work get done as soon as possible.
right.
Not to
We
mention,
gotta get it done
the
before the
fire
weather hits.
apparatus can't get, if they can't get in there because of the situation on the road, we really have a lot of serious issues
Yeah.
that the town is facing, never mind what the DEP may have to say about this road.
Yeah, at that meeting last week, they transferred, or they voted to request us to transfer, we're the ones that authorized it, $8,000 from the emergency fund to the maintenance fund to make road improvements on that road. Hopefully, we have time to do that, so we need to take a vote to ratify the $8,000 transfer from the
Yep.
emergency. I'll give you that motion, Mr.
I'll
Chairman.
second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. In the time being, after 7:15, we have an appointment. And it's Michael Sabatini to discuss Historic District Commission opening. Michael Sabatini is interested in serving on the Historical Commission and the Historic District Commission. The board will first ask Mr. Sabatini questions regarding his interest in serving on the Historical Commission and Historic District Commission. After we finish the question and answer session, the board will discuss the conflict of interest issues pertaining to this appointment. Okay. So the first question we have, Mike,
Yes, sir.
is why are you interested in serving on the Historical Commission and Historic District Commission?
I love antique properties. I've been renovating them and working on them for decades. It seems to be my niche. And I think it's a great opportunity to respect and restore history and keep it alive.
Okay.
I've done a couple in town. I've done the old Shenard Estate on Jellison Ave, the Connor. That was in 2001 or 2 and 3. And then lately I've done the Brass Street Farm here in Raleigh. I love historic and post and beams properties.
Okay. The Historic Commission, actually the Historical Commission and the Historic District Commission each have separate, distinct responsibilities.
Yes, sir.
It's the same board, it's the same members of but they actually have distinct responsibilities, separately distinct responsibilities. Please describe your understanding of the roles and responsibilities of each of the two commissions.
The district commission is, there's an overlying district down the central area. The center of town, and when you drive into the town from Route 1A in Ipswich, that begins a district. So that is one overlying area. Then there are
individuals' properties outside that area. For example, the Jewel Mill out on Route 1, or even the Brass Street Farm, which is often a field here next to Todd Farm. Those are outside the area, so there are a few properties in town that are outside this area of the general downtown historic district.
Okay. Where's the historical commission fit?
The higher, called the higher commission, oversees everything in town. The primary duties of the historic district are downtown, and they are generally limited to items that you see from the road. For the people who are renovating their properties, and some certain to extent color, but predominantly it's related to the windows and the sidings, and also they do work on the fencing too. Their responsibilities relative to fencing.
Or which commission are you describing at this point?
The historic district commission, the downtown area, they would be predominantly for the they do a lot of fences and plastics and individual houses, and on the larger scale, they would be relative to that new property that's coming in on the district, because it's on Route 1A, and I know they've been working on some properties over by the Jewel Mill earlier this season. As I said in on the
I guess I
meetings.
kind of lost your train of thought there. Are you discussing, you're describing the historical commission or the historic district commission?
The district, I believe, is the central area, and the historic,
Well, there are two districts.
yes, sir. Well, there are two commissions.
Well, yeah, there's two commissions, but there also are two historic districts, Historic District 1 and Historic District 2. And you did mention those. I mean, it's the central district, central village area, basically, is one district, and the Jewel Mill is a separate district. So I understand, you described those fairly well. What I'm trying to find out now is, what is the historical commission? What is their job and what do they do?
Well, my understanding, as I'm learning, is they have the overseeing power of everything, and that includes things like my HPR, historic preservation restrictions, and national and properties that are on the National Register of Historic Places. And I know they work on that level.
Yeah. So you're telling me that, when you first answered the question, that if I wanted to change the windows of my house, I'm not in the historic district. My house is not in the historic district.
Yes.
But I would have to go to the historical commission to have them approve my windows?
If your house is not in any of those areas, you do not.
So
If you're not in any type of historic district, or if you are not in my case, the Brass Street Farm is on the National Register of Historic Places. If you don't have a National Register, then you don't have to talk to any of those two people.
Really? I think, Mike, if we decide to appoint you at this, and we're probably not gonna do that tonight because we have some other issues that we need to talk to you about, but I think maybe you better get yourself a copy of the laws that regulate both of these commissions, only because the Historical Commission is much different than the Historic District Commission. They have some authority that relates to district, but not as much as I think you think it is. So I would advise you to study that. I really would, because it is important. And I was chairman of these two committees for a while. And the commission members have always had how do I want to say it without embarrassing them or sound like I'm beating on them? There are two distinct jobs that have to be done with each one of these commissions. And sometimes they kind of intermingle when they shouldn't be intermingled. So we would want to make sure that that doesn't happen as much as it has in the past. So if we appoint somebody new, we want them to make sure they understand that there are two distinct jobs that they have to do.
Okay.
And sometimes they overlap, and sometimes they just get mixed up. So, okay, we can move on now to please describe your understanding, unless somebody else has any questions.
No.
No? No? You have any questions, Joe? No? Okay, please describe your understanding of the open meeting law. Very important. Okay,
Yes.
what is your understanding of the open meeting law?
For a individual to come before a board, that rule or has to be posted in advance.
Yeah. But how does the member of the committee act? I mean, how does the open meeting law affect a member of the committee rather than the applicant or the client, if you will?
Well, the town will have the right to come before and listen. Is that what you mean? And then the board has to listen to the townspeople if they come before them?
Well, I mean, the applicant would file an application
Right,
with either one of these committees.
correct? In
And then-
advance,
Yeah, and then they would get placed on an agenda and they would attend a meeting.
yes.
But what is the action of the committee members? What things do they have to be careful of and have to watch out for and understand how it operates and that kind of thing?
Well, I'm sure they'll have to consider if there was a conflict of interest.
Well,
If there was a neighbor or an abutter.
that's the next question.
Okay.
We haven't got there yet.
Okay. Make sure everybody gets heard.
So I think, there again, I'd like to give you some advice.
Okay.
And definitely read the open meeting law,
Okay.
because there are several things that can get you into trouble if you're not careful. Okay, as a member of a board, you have to understand how that operates and what is required for it to operate and what your actions need to be to stay out of violating that particular law. So if we go to the next question, if appointed, you will be required to take the state ethics law online test. Do you have any objection to taking this test?
Nope.
Okay. You actually have to take the test and pass it and get a certificate, and the computer will print the certificate for you once you pass the test.
Okay. That's news to me, okay?
And that's another requirement.
Okay.
So, because Mr. Sabatini owns property that is covered under the historic preservation restriction that is held by the town's historical commission, he has a potential conflict of interest. Mr. Sabatini has contracted the State Ethics Commission to discuss this conflict. The State Ethics Commission has outlined the relevant sections of Mass General Laws, Chapter 268A, that are applicable to this situation. Mr. Sabatini has provided the Board of Selectmen with a copy of the letter from the State Ethics Commission. The letter addresses the potential conflicts with Section 19, 20, and 23B of the law and outlines a process that would need to be followed by Mr. Sabatini to resolve each of the conflicts brought up under these three sections of the statutes. The board needs to go over each of these with Mr. Sabatini, and Mr. Sabatini will need to complete and submit the disclosures. The Board of Selectmen will need to review them and then make an appointment. So we do have both of those sections.
I think you're missing one. It should be a 23D. Where the state ethics chairman says 20D. That's how I bypass all of that.
So,
Here's his letter. confidential, but I assume you guys can read it.
Okay, in his letter, it says, let me try to back up just a bit. Given the agreement and your ownership of the Bradstreet Farm, your appointment to the RHC would raise immediate and potential issues under sections 19, 20, and 23B of the law. So it's all of section 20, not just the subsection, as you had said, 20D, I think you mentioned?
Right.
Okay, it's actually saying section 20, so you have to meet all of the requirements of section 20, not just section D.
Right. And
Okay.
then when you go to the next paragraph, it says, accordingly, you will be able to serve as a RHC member to seek an exemption from the BOS under section 20D to permit you to retain your financial interests in agreement while serving on the RHC.
No, I agree, but that is part of section 20, but it's not specifically that section that you only have to follow. You have to follow all of section 20. So you need a copy of the law to make sure you have it all.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
Mr. Sabatini gave me the blank form, so we didn't have anything submitted for you for tonight.
Okay.
That's why Mr. Murray said we wouldn't be able to make the appointment until we receive those and the selectmen have time to read it. I don't know if you have them ready.
He's given me something here that I'm not sure exactly what
So
it is.
we would just need to go through that.
Okay.
So the 20 Ds on the special municipal employee status, which the Historical Commission and Historic District Commission have, I believe, and they apparently checked it, Mr. Wilson from the State Ethics Commission. So we would need to review that, then the selectman needs to make a determination on that. And I believe though the appearance one, the 23B is a separate one that you would need to file as well. And that's, and the selectmen would need to review that, because I think when they make their appointment, Mr. Sabatini, the board may just have conditions on how, I know under the historic preservation restriction, the Historical Commission has to make periodic site visits to ensure compliancy with that. So how, the manner in which you would, recuse yourself on anything that pertained to 239 Main Street, I
Right.
think. So that's what the board needs to review and then set up, so.
We did submit a copy tonight of chapter 268A, subsection 20D.
Okay, so there's that, and
So
then I
that one.
believe,
So there's another one that we need?
there's a conflict of interest appearance, just the appearance one, I think.
Okay.
And that's one that many town officials file on a regular basis, just to make sure that it's on record, that they know there could be, the law, violation of the law is really an appearance. There is no, maybe have no actions being taken, but just the mere appearance constitutes a violation of the law. So they strongly encourage you to file the other disclosure too.
Okay.
And you sent that to me, I believe,
Yes.
a blank one. The 23B3, right?
Well, I guess for transparency, that's why I just forwarded you is the ethics commission.
Yo, and
is
it was,
entire
it
form.
was easier, thank you for doing that, because otherwise we would have had to send you back there for you to get a letter and have that all. So
Done.
you were proactive in doing that. So the 23B3.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, is it wise then to continue this until we make sure that the administrative staff has had time to go through make sure the proper forms are
And that we've actually,
in and-
the board has actually reviewed them also.
right, yeah.
Individually.
Just to make sure we're complying with the law, because we also don't, if we appoint him, we certainly don't want him to have conflict issues. He needs to
Right.
clearly, we all need to clearly understand as he deals with various issues that come before those boards.
Right, exactly.
So I'd recommend we hold it off till,
Yeah, because the Board of Selectmen, if you
Next week.
see in your package, the last page, the selectmen actually have to approve the 20D exemption. So in order to do that, you have had to have an opportunity to review
Right.
what Mrs. Sabatini
Right,
submitted.
and
That's why
we
we
need,
probably need at
we'll
least a
need to
week.
review it ourselves individually,
I think, and then we'll put it on the agenda at the next
so
appointment.
we don't become a conflict of interest.
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot, there is a lot to this.
Yeah, it gets complicated
It
because of
it
the
is.
property you own and the restrictions on that property, so. What I'd recommend is next week enough time to
Yeah, I think that should be fine.
put it on the
Yeah,
agenda
because
for
we-
next
we-
week.
And
got
then,
that.
if Mr. Sabatini can just do the 23B. And then just if you can email it to me is even fine, or just drop it off in the office so that I can get it to the selectmen in advance of the meeting. So, Mr. Chairman, would you like Mr. Sabatini to attend next week's meeting? We can put him on early so that
We
he
can
has
put
an
them on the agenda, and
opportunity.
if something
this-
should crop up that is an issue, then we can get back to them.
So at 7:15, would that be a good time for you?
Yes,
So we can get you this completed.
Okay. And maybe we could distribute the instructions to each one of the selectmen also, so that they have a chance to read them.
That's in their
I
packet.
think we
That's in the
got that.
package already? Okay, good, good.
I think the only thing we don't have is the new form he submitted tonight, which
The completed 20D form, so we're waiting for another form, the 23B3.
Yeah.
And then the selectmen will have to, in order to make this, to approve the 20D, that last page in your packet is the one that the selectmen would have to approve that exemption.
Okay. So you got any questions for us, Mike?
No, I have a lot of homework done.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And it's not a bad thing, Mike, it really isn't, because it is an important committee. It affects people's lives on the decisions that that committee makes, so, as you well know.
Yes, sir, I do.
Yeah. So, okay,
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
thank you. So now we're going to appointment number 2, which is Mike Sabatini and Conservation Agent Brent Bazelak to discuss invasive species program at the Brad Street property. So Brent, if you could kind of move up a little bit for us.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Board of Selectmen. My name is Brent Bazelak. I'm the Conservation Agent serving for the town of Raleigh. I apologize, but due to the lateness of the notification in regards to this agenda item, this memo was just completed minutes before the convening of your meeting this evening. And I did provide staff with a copy. Mr. Sabatini, I emailed you a copy. I'm sure you were coming here and not reading your email. And also, I produced a color reproduction on legal-size paper of the plan that I see Mr. Sabatini has on his presentation board.
Okay. So why don't we open the appointment, and basically Mike Sabatini is working on an invasive species program on his property. There are some trees on the parcel of land under the care and custody of the Board of Selectmen that have been affected by invasive species. Mr. Sabatini and Conservation Agent Brent Bazelak will discuss this with the board this evening. Attached are the materials on the program. So, do you want me to read your memo into the,
That might help because I think it's going to answer some overarching questions as well as give some specifics that will probably serve the board in their discussion with
Okay.
the petitioner this
Okay.
evening, Mr.
Sounds good.
Sabatini.
okay, it's to G. Robert Mary Chairman, Board of Selectmen, from Brent Bazelak, Conservation Agent, December 8th, 2014. Brad Street Farm. Selective release of native trees and suppression of invasive plant species by Mr. Sabatini to resolve enforcement order on Brad Street Farm Conservation Area. Honorable Chairman Murray, the Conservation Department did not receive prior notification regarding this agenda item to the Selectmen until seeking agent replacement otherwise of another matter. It also came belatedly to our attention that no written materials regarding the proposal had been submitted to the Board of Selectmen for their review and consideration. Our department has copied the selectmen on materials previously presented to the Conservation Commission. The petitioning party should confirm that this Bradstreet Farm revised restoration plan prepared by DeRosa Environmental and dated November 11, 2014, actually describes his proposed activities on town land. The petitioner seeks to resolve the unpermitted cutting, clearing, and removal of vegetation from wetland resource areas on the town Bradstreet Farm Conservation Area adjacent to the freshwater pond. The Conservation Commission has approved for implementation the activities described for the Bradstreet Farm Conservation Area with the addition of conditions to be drafted and contained within the enforcement directive issued under the Wetlands Protection Act and the Rowley Wetlands Protective Bylaw. Those proposed conditions will address this plan's lack of reporting that documents, that archives, monitoring the invasive plant species, removal and suppression over time, 2 growing seasons, and field inspections to evaluate completion of tasks and effectiveness of the release of the native trees. The original impacted area is to be stabilized, and addition of the removable organic layer is proposed. See page 1, 2 items identified, ENF ORD number 1 and number 4. The Commission directed the petitioner to seek the authorization of the Board of Selectmen to conduct activities on the recreational parcel and the affordable housing parcel on Bradstreet Farm. Please advise me if I may be of further assistance. Okay, Brent, as always, you've done an excellent job putting that together for us, and we certainly appreciate, your efforts to get this issue cleared up, and you and your board both. We're behind you on that part of it. We need to get things squared away and fixed up. So, you got anything to say, Mike?
It is resolved, so the only thing I have to show you is tell you that there's a bunch of trees. These are the locations, and the Conservation Commission approved everything, but since I am effectively in and around the Bradstreet area, and some of them are on the, this parcel of property and these different locations, they wanted me to tell you what I was doing. And that's as simple as it gets.
Okay.
Let up a little higher for you. These trees are high visibility trees. They are covered with invasive species. Some are already dying. Trees on, where are we? Some of the trees right down the center section here are already dying. This is a conservation component of the land. This is the Paper Road cul-de-sac. This is the lane on the way in on the right-hand side. You might call it the housing development property. That little section here. So some of the 9 high visibility trees, only about 5 are technically in the conservation area. Some are in the housing authority area, and one of them is actually kind of over here by the community gardens, right about there. That's in the community gardens area. They are heavily covered with invasive species, poison ivy, bittersweet, and as opposed to going in there and being down here in the wetlands area, these trees and whatnot are more highly visible and age as apple trees are, 150, 200 years old. So it's more prudent to try to save something that's more significant as opposed to down in this area. And that's really what the compromise worked out, to protect and restore highly visible trees that are more prudent to the Bradstreet Farm And I say that word Brass Street Farm, but whereas you guys have, you know, I own the Brass Street property over here, but that's still part of the Brass Street Farm. And that's what we're working on. So technically, I would be standing on your side of the property, because my line is here. I'd be going over the line and pruning trees that are technically on Rowley Town property. So I'm coming before you to tell you that's what I'll be doing.
Okay.
And, so they want me to, so the town
Sure.
conservation commissioners wanted me to come before you and tell you that.
Where do we stand on the enforcement order on the pond?
It's been minimalized. There's some things that we are gonna be doing on it, including helping you guys take down the diving board. That's probably one of the biggest areas. There's some minimal stuff going on in that area. If you wanna talk about it, there's not too much gonna happen there, other than the duck goes back. Some bark moths they talked about, but really not much in that area, for the simple reason that if you were to do anything, it wouldn't last. And you all understand that. So that component is, in scope, has been greatly reduced.
Is that what, do we have the corrected? Your interpretation agree with his interpretations? I know I went out there with you guys
First off, if I may,
way back.
Yeah.
a very prudent thing to do, which I suggested in my memo, which, since Mr. Sabatini did not submit anything to the Board of Selectmen, and basically I presupposed that November 11th plan was going to be the same plan talked about with the Board of Selectmen tonight. My memo asks, and I'm going to ask directly, Mr. Sabatini, is the November 11th, 2014 Brad Street Farm revised restoration plan prepared by DeRosa Environmental, is that the plan that we are discussing here this evening, that you wish the Selectmen to authorize some of the activities which that plan proposes on property under the care and custody of the Board of Selectmen of the town of Raleigh?
That's a lot of words. All I know is
They're
I'm
all
supposed to.
English, but they
Okay.
make sense.
You know what, I don't have it in front of me, and I know you got an attitude with me, so let's cut to the chase. All I'm supposed-
Mike,
Let's
Mike.
be nice.
I'm gonna be real quick before I leave. All I'm supposed to do is come to you and tell you about the trees I'm supposed to touch, and the number one thing, if I have to go get a tape of that meeting, I'll bring it in here, gentlemen, is to talk to you about whether or not you wanted me to get a general liability policy for myself personally to be on the town property. We're not here to talk about the resolution, what's going on, whether or not you're gonna do this. I'm supposed to talk to you about 9 trees. That's it, gentlemen. We're not supposed to open up this whole can of worms
But
and have this big letter that he draws up and saying, you know, there was no great submittal to you guys. There isn't supposed to be a great submittal. I'll go back to the conservation and say, am I supposed to open up the whole can of worms over there and bring it into the Board of Selectmen and start talking over there?
if you're coming in to our property to do something to our trees,
Right.
and we want a plan.
That is the plan. I mean, if you want to see
I don't
it
have
from
a
the
plan.
town,
I don't have a plan.
the one that was approved by the conservation, then I will go get it and bring it to you.
Well, I think that's what Brent's asking tonight. He's asking you, is it the same plan that was created on November 11th? Is that the plan that we're gonna be dealing with?
I don't have it in front of me. I could probably say it was.
Well, I mean, that's not what I'm gonna accept. I can't say probably.
All right, then I'll come back another
It
day.
was the,
Why don't we just let it go, Brent?
Well, just
And we'll come another day.
Mr. Sabatini.
Before you leave, my question,
set.
well, my question just involves this, and I guess my concern is that to let you come on and do further work on the town side, I'd like to see that other situation resolved either before or with it, so that everybody, you know, get one situation resolved to everybody's satisfaction before we say, okay, fine, you can work on some more of our trees. That's all, that's the only
Okay,
purpose
I'll
of
go
my
get all that.
question.
Do it
The
again.
commission.
I'm all set.
The
I'll go do
commission
it myself.
fully- will
I'll
you
go get it.
please- Will
Gentlemen.
you please give
All right,
me the ability to comment, please?
Yeah.
Because I'm trying not to waste your time.
Okay.
I'm trying to facilitate your ability to get the Board of Selectmen to approve that project which has parts that are not on land under the care and custody of the commission. Yes, the
I will go
commission.
get the report. When I have it in my hands, I'll hand it over to you. That's all. Let's leave it at that.
Already
okay?
submitted the copy that you filed with us that is part of the public record. That's what they have before them. That's
Okay.
what they're discussing right now. We just wanted you to say yes.
I don't have it in front of me. I can't
And the
answer that
commission
question.
did not direct you just to appear and tell the Board of Selectmen you were going to do something. We requested that you respectfully ask their permission to undertake activities that are on property under their care and custody.
I just said that.
But I don't know what he's gonna do.
Okay.
I haven't been told yet what he's
Okay.
actually going to do.
I'll come back with a different presentation. How's that?
Sounds good.
Thank you. Have a good
We
day.
can get this resolved. but-
All set. Thank you.
Goodbye. Brent, we're sorry.
Guess I asked the wrong question.
We're sorry, Brent. I
The short
mean-
answer to your question is yes, which is why I specifically pointed out pages 1 and 2 that have items identified in enforcement order number 1 to number 4. Those were the components of stabilization, installing
I just
erosion
want to make
control.
sure
into the pond.
before we authorize further work, that the work that was an issue before is completed in a satisfactory manner to the Conservation Commission. Otherwise, why should we let them do more work if we haven't reached a
Well, and that's
satisfactory?
that's
all.
why
That
this
that was the only
memo
intent of
was
my question.
crafted today that just suggested that there needed to be monitoring, there needed to be
Kinds of
inspection.
things, yeah.
This is all stuff that we, being a board that is open to public scrutiny and that we prefer to have written documentation exist in the record as to exactly what the terms and conditions are of decision-making, especially when it's involving an unpermitted alteration that occurred to town land. We are fully prepared once the Board of Selectmen authorized his activities, which the Conservation Commission fully supports.
Yeah, and I think
In total.
in this particular instance, it needs to be documented very well, and
Right.
all of the i's need to be dotted,
Right.
and all of the t's need to be crossed at this point, given the attitude that we saw here.
Well, and again, we were actually very supportive, and that's why I spent the time today out of my schedule copying the Board of Selectmen to try and facilitate so that we could have reached a decision tonight, because I believe again, the materials that were entered as part of our public record are what have been placed before you tonight. And we fully support in total all the various activities, but we wanted to make sure that activities outside the conservation area received your vote of approval this evening.
Okay. I mean, I can understand that the commission might say, well, look, you gotta go talk to the Board of Selectmen. And he took that literally and said, all I gotta do is tell you what I'm gonna do,
Well,
and I
they
can go
they
ahead
did
and do it.
include the word seek your authorization or permission. I can't remember which one it was. It was either permission or authorization. That was included in there.
So, obviously, you're just telling us you're gonna do it and then walk away. I mean, I can't accept that. I don't have, I'm only speaking for myself as one member of the board, but I'm not gonna accept it without seeing exactly what's gonna happen. So, the rest of us can decide what to do, but. Okay, so that takes care of that. Now, Brent,
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
I don't want to hold up our principal assessor, Sean McFadden,
Well,
who's here
I-
this evening.
Deb, I was just gonna ask Brent permission to move ahead to one other issue so we could get a notary that we need to have. So
And
I-
this would be beneficial for Mr. Bazelak to hear as well, because this is about the Girl Scout land, which will, which the Conservation Commission is involved with.
So we're all done with the appointment for 7:25, and we will move now to old business, item number 2, and it's an update on the Girl Scout land. It's no wonder I'm not even in the right file here. Okay. So So what do we need to have you notarized
So,
for, Sean?
well, there's a number of things here, so if
So
you
we
wanted.
want to agree with all of these.
Well, if we want to take things out of order on the update on the Girl Scout land, we have a Title V enforceable agreement that I've been working on with the town's attorney. So we need the Board of Selectmen to vote and sign that. And it must be witnessed by our notary, Principal Assessor Sean McFadden this evening. We
Okay.
submitted to the Board of Health for their meeting next week. So if you could look in your packet where it says sign here, should be tagged. Nothing.
No, but I've got two notices. Notice of enforcement agreement, compliance with Mass Environmental Code, that needs a notary, and
That's it.
that's the one we need.
This addresses the Title V compliancy issues we need when we purchase the Girl Scout property and after we close on it, and subsequently be recorded at the Registry of Deeds.
Okay, so that would be item B that we want to look at, and the next step is for the Board of Selectmen to sign the notice of enforceable agreement for compliance with Title V. The Board of Health will also need to sign this during their meeting next week. Principal Assessor Sean McFadden shall notarize this document during tonight's meeting. So is there any discussion?
No, it's just a requirement that we have to do to take possession of the land
Okay.
and deal with the septic system. So I'll give you a motion that we sign.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, I've got two pieces of paper here, but I'm only gonna give you one.
Right,
They both go together,
but the Board of Health has to sign the other
but you
one.
can only sign one. And I'm not gonna trust you to get it in the wrong spot. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
So, Mr. Chairman, we could probably just complete the rest of this meeting agenda update on the Girl Scout land, because Mr. Pazak will want to hear this anyway for the
Okay.
Conservation Commission.
Is that okay with you, Brent? Yep. Okay.
Thank
I didn't want to make sure we didn't have a date you need to get to or something like that, you know? A meeting.
Yours for the evening if the board so wishes.
We appreciate that very much, Frank. We really do. Unfortunately, he's not here to hear that. So, we want to move on. We want to start today, don't we?
Yes, so
Okay, why
the
don't we do
site
that?
assessment, yep.
Just, it takes me a minute, that's all, Deb, to
No,
get
it's okay.
to get reprogrammed here. It's the update on the Girl Scout land, and item A is 21E site assessment. DeRosa Environmental has submitted a 21E site assessment on time as promised. To sum up the report, they have found that everything looks fine. According to the report, no conditions are indicative of a release or threat of release of oil or hazardous materials or recognized environmental conditions. Chairman Murray has read through the report. And we do have a copy of the report. Thanks, Frank. Sean, thank you very much.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Chairman, we weren't expecting any real issues out there. I don't think anybody with a long-term history of the land had any indication there was anything done out there commercially, at least in the last 100 years or whatever, so that
This-
report kind of
This
confirms.
is the report, and I have read it.
Good.
Now, if you ask me what's in it, I may not be able to tell you. So, but in fact, what Debbie has written for us here tonight is basically what the report says. They found nothing that was really major. that would create an issue. There have been several spills from filling oil tanks and minor things like that, which they felt was not conducive to an issue that would create any problems for us. So, and they've done, I mean, it's amazing the amount of work that they put into this report with the various files and departments that they've checked with and the state agencies, and it just goes on and on and on, and that's why it's so thick. There's all kinds of information there. There's aerial maps for multi-years, and basically there was some apple orchard there originally, but it's pretty much on the Smith Lane side of the property, and it's not all that big. I thought it was bigger than that, but it's not. So my guess is now that back in the 50s and 60s, they were probably just doing some logging in there, and they mentioned that in here. They found the stumps, and you probably did too, Brent, when you walked the land. And
I noticed the existing network of tractor or cart paths or
Yep.
woods roads, what I.
Yep. Well, you were there?
That's what we call them.
yeah, and so you've talked with these folks, right?
No,
Okay.
the draft executive summary was shared with me today. If I may mention, there was a very proactive suggestion there, and that was, they noted that the oil storage tanks did not have any secondary containment
Yes.
installed around them, and that would be a very good proactive thing for the town to take the initiative and make sure that that's done.
Yes, and I'm thinking because the tanks are empty at this point. So, I mean, I don't think it's critical that we do it right now. And I think I would want to, as a member of the Board of Selectmen, look at the types of units that are there and whether we want to maybe go to propane for those three, actually 2 locations that have oil at this point. Rather than deal with oil, we could go to propane.
One slight nitty-gritty detail, only
Yeah.
from having grown up in a home that had an oil furnace and had an oil tank, is that all oil storage tanks are designed so that the outflow supply hose that goes to the furnace is actually up above the bottom of the tank. So even though your gauge may be reading empty, at least all the tanks that I grew up with, all actually have residual, because that's designed so that if there is any scum or any other sediment,
Well,
that
generally,
when the furnace draws from it, it's drawing from up above that and not drawing any of the sediment.
and basically with tanks this age, what you generally wind up with there is sludge.
Yeah.
And that actually fills up the tank, so it's not as apt, unless the tank rots out. And they noted in the report that there was no signs of rust in the seams and things like that.
Yeah.
So, and I would think we'd want to talk to whoever becomes the operator of the facility as to what they might prefer also.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're going to want to evaluate those heating systems and see what kind of condition they're in and so forth and so on. So,
Correct.
and if in fact we want to go back to oil, then we would definitely do a new installation, which would require those retainers. So, okay.
They did observe the potentially now 4 vernal pools.
Yeah, I'll have to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because it was our understanding with 3, they were saying they observed 4 isolated wetland pools that may function as vernal pools, and 3 of the 4
They also found a
observed
couple
pools
of,
identified as potential vernal pools by the natural heritage data.
Right.
they found some active beaver dams out there too.
You don't say.
Surprise, surprise.
And they've actually got pictures of the trees that are really fresh. So. Okay, so we're all set with that assessment, and we can get on to draft, actually C, which is draft caretakers agreement. Debbie and Judy are working on the caretaker agreement. The document follows the existing agreement between the Girl Scouts and the caretaker. Bob, Mary, and Dave Peterson met with the caretaker and toured the house. I thought it was in pretty good shape, Dave.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised, and the current occupants were very happy that we were willing to sign an interim caretaker agreement
Yeah,
to
maybe
watch
we-
over the property. It's good for our insurance rates, it's good for them, they got no place to go at this point
Right.
anyway.
And I mean,
And
we
from talking to them, they've done a lot of work out there with the Girl Scouts, so they're very experienced at
yeah,
dealing with that property.
with the
and-
property itself, they have a lot of knowledge of the property.
And I think they're gonna be very helpful when it comes time to go through the buildings and check them out with maybe the building inspector or the other inspectors, et cetera,
Yeah.
to assess the
Yeah.
condition.
And we did stress to them that it would, at this point in time, it would be a conditional.
Yeah, we told them that
Agreement.
there would be a temporary permit for them to remain there, and it would really depend on how the final agreement with whoever runs the camp, hopefully runs the camp, would work out. But it seems like they've met with representatives from the Y, for instance, who had looked at the camp over, and they got along very well. So it seems like they're very, from our meeting anyway, they were very congenial and helpful, and seemed
Yeah.
like it should be a pleasant working situation, at least to
Right.
get us through the interim period without having a big problem there.
Yep. So we're working on that, and we do have a copy in your file, I believe.
Yeah.
So, and it is the one that the Girl Scout had used, basically. Obviously, we need to make changes to it for our own flavor, but I think it'll work out fine. So, item D is closing date, and Debbie is working on an anticipated closing date of December 17th. Debbie and Judy are trying to finalize the draft deed, etc., with the Girl Scouts attorneys. Okay.
Just one quick question. If we close the 17th, are we looking at it when we would be putting out a possible RFP for the camp, or is it something that we have at this point no idea really?
I think the selectmen will have to make some decisions on responsibility and ownership of certain things, in terms of property and any work that would need to be done, including any Title V work that we just had the waiver voted on by the board. So we would have to sort out, I think, some of those, very responsible, like responsibilities and ownership and any repair work. I've also been working with the Board of Health. The Girl Scouts was considered a public water supplier. They had their own water system as well as town water. So that's been turned off, obviously, for the season. But there's a long list of things I need to go through with.
In fact, the caretaker mentioned, he's certified by the state to test the water there.
Okay.
He's actually got the correct certification to do that. Well, we
Okay.
didn't see it, but obviously.
Yeah, so that was something actually that Frank had to work on with the current property manager for all the Girl Scout properties, because that file was missing at the DEP level. They had to rectify that situation a few months ago. So there's a number of things I'm going to need some guidance from the board on.
We're gonna need to take a look at the buildings and maybe go out with the building inspector and see just.
Building smell, maybe in Board of Health, I think, to give us an idea of what what might jump out at
Right.
them, and something that we will have to address at some point in time.
So if we do the 17th, and maybe sometime that following, what day is the 17th?
It's a Wednesday.
It's a week after.
Maybe either the end of that week or very early the following week, maybe we could, if the weather cooperates, take a look at those buildings, at least do a preliminary check.
Yeah. Now,
So
in
set up something with
in
the
the
building
report, they're
inspector.
saying the buildings are in decent shape.
Yeah, he seems to think
Report.
so, and I think it's a matter of getting someone with authority, the building inspector and the
Exactly,
health board.
because
to
they'll
look-
see things
To look
that-
at them and say, yeah, this is, because the girl, obviously whoever puts a bid in to take the camp needs to know
Where they stand.
where
Yeah.
they stand,
And we
and we
want,
need to
we
know
want
what's
to make that
expected of us.
disclosure
and
also, that whether it's good or bad, we need to make that disclosure.
Mhm.
So,
Okay.
Just a heads up on the calendar-wise that the following week would be Christmas week, and
Right,
the
well, I'm
week
just
after
thinking
that is New
if we
Year's.
get out some morning or something, there would just be a
Yeah,
a matter
you have a
of,
Monday or Tuesday.
just to keep the thing flowing, because the winter's only gonna get, hopefully not gonna get much snow, but,
We will see.
it would be nice to walk around there in dry ground and not in snowbanks, so. And then we could, we'll take a preliminary look, and then probably have to go back if there's issues to in a more in-depth style, but at least to get a handle on, 'cause
Buildings haven't been occupied in about 3 years, correct?
Right.
About 2009.
2009?
When they,
Was the- oh, okay.
was the last time that they were actually had camps there,
Oh,
had the
okay.
camp there, so.
he said he was doing some work on the buildings, as under the Girl Scouts.
Okay.
And then they kind of stopped him, once they realized they were gonna be selling it, they kind of put a hold up on the things he was doing, but he seems to feel that they're, in general, they're in pretty good condition. They haven't deteriorated too much for the most part, so it's a matter of just getting someone in there with an expert eye that'll be giving us permits that.
Maybe I misunderstood that, and it was that they had serviced the buildings the last 3 years. I thought maybe he was servicing the buildings.
Yeah, I mean, he's been keeping up on them and doing some, if there's some rotting boards or something, he's been replacing them, things like that, until they told him not to do it anymore. The other issue I think, Bob, you were looking at is, once we take the building on the 17th, we've got to make plowing.
Snow plowing.
We're responsible to plow that,
The
so.
Girl Scouts have taken all the equipment that he used to use
Right.
to clear the snow up there. So I did talk to Pat,
Right.
the highway surveyor, and he and I are supposed to get together probably, I would think now, towards the end of this week. He talked about maybe the middle of the week, although he was busy today because we had the snow flurries, and then he's certainly going to be busy tomorrow with the rain. And so he wanted to go up and just take a look around and formulate a plan.
Okay.
So I told him to think about it, and that, we would be accepting the building fairly soon.
Right.
So we needed to kind of have that in place, just so that we can get emergency equipment and things like that in and out of there if we need to, and so that the tenants can get in and out of the driveway if they need to.
Right, it's not only the driveway, but the buildings themselves, so if
Yeah.
there should be a fire up there, for instance, but the fire engine has the ability to get close enough to the building, so that
Right.
it's fairly open up there. I don't think a plowing will be a big problem, it's just a matter of working out the
And
details.
Pat, just without having looked at it yet, thought maybe if it wasn't too large a storm, that he would go in after with some sort of a loader, tractor type
Right.
machine, and just move the stuff around rather
Okay.
than trying to plow it. Obviously, if it gets deeper.
And the tenants seem to be amenable to, if he has access to some equipment, that
Yeah.
he'd be more than happy to help with it, so it's doable, it's just something we have to,
Yeah.
this time of year, we gotta be aware of right away.
Right, and I, told Pat to think about it, and we'll get together sometime
Okay.
this week, so. Okay, is there anything else on that part of the program? Okay, so we crossed that one off. And our appointment for 7:35, which is now 8:20. Brenda, if you're still with us, we'll take you up now, if you don't mind.
May I rearrange your table a little bit to try a low-tech presentation method?
Go for
If it fails miserably, you can just ask me to be summarily dismissed from the
So it's full
meeting.
of water.
Well, yes, I'm moving the water because the microphone and water don't exist. This is going to appear to be a little sort of a Rube Goldberg type thing, but this is what happens when you don't have a separate screen and projector.
Wow. I'm impressed. Well, that's good.
As
The only thing I can see wrong with it, Brent, it's not playing music.
no, it's not playing music. I forgot my kazoo.
Okay, we'll forgive you this time.
So I'm talking, so the Board of Selectmen and the Town Administrator have requested that I follow and pay attention to the Town of Raleigh's compliance with stormwater in regards to Phase 2
Thank God.
and the National Pollution Elimination Discharge
system or, anyway, bad stuff.
Yes.
And I provided some copies of some materials to the Board of Selectmen. I don't want to rehash ancient history, but the reason we are doing this is because under the Clean Water Act, it was discovered that stormwater from municipal roadways and from town facilities and from impervious areas, both private and public, was a major contributing factor of pollutants and was significantly impairing the waters of the United States.
Wow.
And so in an attempt by the EPA to try and see that we take responsibility for these impervious areas, we are looking right now at a draft permit which will mandate in all communities across the Commonwealth that have urbanized areas that we will need to take steps to reduce the pollutant runoff carried by stormwater. I believe I copied an overview of the town because due to the 2010 census, the area in Raleigh that was covered as being urbanized areas and subject to the requirements of the Phase 2 clean water compliance has now grown significantly, probably by 50%, and substantially includes most all of Raleigh west of Main Street.
Some, the hash lines that we have on,
Yeah, that's a very confusing graphic representation, but there's some diagonal areas which I think may have represented the original. There was two
Yeah,
two
based
distinct
on-
areas, and now it's all filled in.
the 2000 census, and then it's, the next one is based on the 2010 census, and
Right.
you're right, there's a lot of more or less cross marks now
Yes.
that weren't there before. So, you want to take a look at that?
So, in one sense, that helps because it is hard to deal with inconsistencies when an area on one side of the street isn't in and an area on the other side of the street is in, because you know stormwater runs off to both sides of the street. But anyway, so again, forgive me, this was kind of a low-tech way, but I wanted to share with you some of the slides from Newton Tedder, who is an employee of the EPA and basically in charge of their public hearing process and accepting comments on the draft. And he's probably the one person at EPA Region 1 that actually knows the most about the draft general permit, because I believe he probably wrote most of it.
Wow.
I've reviewed it. So basically, we are required to prepare a notice of intent, which folks may have heard that term from the Wetlands Protection Act and stuff. The EPA uses this same abbreviation, which would provide basic info of the town, 2003 regulatory requirements, talk about those. It takes into account endangered species areas, historic properties. It looks for best management practices that have been employed by the town. And then last but not least, it looks for certification and a signature on the notice of intent application so they know there's a responsible party that prepared it on behalf of the town. The proposed notice of intent is an application form. They anticipate that it will be due 90 days from the effective date of the permit. It is proposed and postulated right now that the effective date of the permit will be September 2015. But that's, we've heard proposed and postulated dates before, so anyway. Information is going to be required, public notice by, I believe it gets posted both on the EPA's website. I don't know if there's a requirement for posting on our website. And basically, it is seeking the town to get authority to discharge, to have stormwater that leaves impervious areas, either private or municipal, and enters the waters of the United States. I don't know. I like saying the waters of the United States. You can stop me from saying it any time. It always sounds just kind of descriptive. So they require description and detail. They're going to require a map. So we need to make sure our map of outfalls and drainage areas is going to now basically have to include the whole town, whatever infrastructure we have. And they require an annual evaluation. Well, all of us go in for an annual physical, so it's probably pretty common sense for the EPA to be looking at us to do an annual evaluation of where we are in meeting terms. 6 minimum measures: public education, public involvement, illicit discharge detection and elimination, construction runoff, post-construction stormwater management, pollution and prevention. We actually already, I think, are familiar with a lot of these things. There's some specifications now that enter into this, specifically on public education or public involvement. They talk about different audiences. So there is a component here, shared responsibility. Right now, I'm participating with the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission on a stormwater collaborative, which they received a grant and have hired Horsley and Witten to work with the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission and the 15 communities to figure out what parts of permit requirements can possibly be taken care of on a group collaborative basis instead of each town having to do some individual requirement that ends up being done uniformly by all the different cities and towns. So, in other words, we're seeking economies of scale, I think, in some of those requirements. So public education and outreach, what's different is they talk about now specifying 4 audiences: residents, businesses and commercial facilities, developers, and industrial facilities. And they're going to require 2 messages to each audience over the permit term. So there is an opportunity for shared collaboration. In one of
Does that mean we need to set up, say, in the industrial or commercial areas out on Route 1, specific meetings to meet with, say Ipswich Bay Glass, it has a lot of
right, it may
impervious.
be,
I'm not saying
yeah.
anything negative about them, but
No.
in terms of the runoff from, say, their parking lots,
Well, actually-
or anybody else that has.
Because they're talking about education, it may be as simple as doing a specific directed mailer to them.
Okay.
Some type of communication piece that talks about runoff
Right.
that is
So they haven't
a
specified
runoff
exactly
issue
yet what-
that is indicative of operating commercial and industrial facilities. As, let's take the other example of possibly a communication piece to individual private homeowners about fertilization of their lawn and trying to educate them so that over-fertilization doesn't happen, so that lawn fertilizer or lawn treatments, pesticides or herbicides are applied when weather conditions are right and not just before a rainstorm or downpours, those types of things.
Yeah,
It
okay.
can be just
Yeah.
communication.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question? We currently, as you know, are a part of Greenscapes.
Correct.
And they do a mailer on behalf of the town of Rowley. The selectmen probably remember that. So we would still be able to maybe utilize that organization.
It's entirely possible, but I have
that
the
requirement.
Right. Well, again, because it's a draft permit, we're trying to look into this. But we might need to be able to produce targeted mailing lists that actually show a mailing to certain of these audiences with a message that's tailored to them in regards
Specifically, yeah.
to trying to reduce and facilitate lack of pollutant discharge. So
Yes. Yeah, so I
it's
mean,
a little bit of a speculation
Yeah.
at this point in time, but
it's really
Yeah.
just taking, enhancing the current, the public outreach requirement we have to meet every year, and maybe, making it,
Right.
targeted to the 4 audiences you just mentioned.
Yes.
But we would still be able to utilize, the Greenscapes program, and that Peter Phippen, I believe he goes to probably some of these meetings.
right.
Because they're so knowledgeable about the different facets of
Correct.
this.
But it can also be that you know, they sponsor different workshops. Again, as part of the collaborative nature, we may want to see that a regional workshop is done that tailors specifically to the residents in our area and a nearby adjoining town, or it can also, I believe it should also have a component where we develop a portion of the town website that talks about some of the issues of stormwater and its detrimental impacts. We certainly have a vested interest in water quality with the shell fishery and how many Raleigh residents are not only dependent but very appreciative of the soft-shelled clams produced in the area. So,
And you actually helped us a couple of years ago, and I actually was responsible for the compliancy issues. One year, you actually did the door hanger project with the Boy Scouts.
right,
for
we
one
still
of the-
have that as a
one of the-
possible component. Yes,
to meet the
stenciling the storm
requirements.
drains and putting door hangers on targeted neighborhoods. Yes, that was
That was
done as part of our
important.
outreach.
And we had to report, that was on our report,
Yeah.
the EPA, so there was a lot it's a lot to that public outreach piece.
So, illicit discharge detection and elimination. This is a very important component piece to the permit, but I'm not sure it really has a lot of onerous obligations for us because it's mostly tailored to communities that have municipal sewage and municipal stormwater. And what they talked about was that many communities sort of did not do testing of their outfall stormwater, and therefore did not intuitively know that a mistake was made in the past and a contractor mistakenly connected to the stormwater pipe when he was supposed to be connecting the sewage line of the residents to the sewage pipe. Obviously, that's not a concern in our community. So, but I believe we still will have some obligation to do some testing, but I don't foresee this as being something. In some communities, they are going to require very detailed, very specific, a regimen of neighborhood testing and stuff like that. I'm not sure that we are going to have that same type of burden in this permit just because of the way our community is with all occupied dwellings having their own sewage disposal system. And this talks about the catchment ranking where you'd identify catch basins and their proximity to both different systems and then test going up the line of the catch basins. So we may not see that at all. But we are going to see dry weather screening and wet weather screening. And that will help us be able to demonstrate that illicit connections are probably not a pollutant concern in the town of Raleigh. But that's not to say that they might not be some type of issue where somebody might be discharging something that we don't know of. But we will be required to do screenings.
Would you foresee any financial obligations towards that the town would have to commit to?
Well, we are going to there are numerous obligations and financial obligations throughout this whole permit. One of the ones that I just mentioned is that we will have to do some testing of our outfalls. They won't just accept that the fact we have subsurface sewage disposal systems, that means nobody could have possibly discharged anything to any of our roads that do have some type of drainage or catchment system. So we will have to do, we're going to have to complete our mapping. Our mapping, I think, may not have
We're
done
anticipating
wholly.
extensive, costs associated with this, and as I've mentioned to the board before, it's an unfunded mandate. And it's been brought up several times by the Mass Municipal Association. I think by being in a collaborative with the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, we can mitigate some of these forecasted expenses because there's so many components to the requirements under the new permit. I mean, there's I think the enhanced outreach, so you have the whole public relations campaign, you have the testing, the mapping, and ongoing compliancy issues. So, many municipalities have a staff person with a job title for stormwater now, and an office and a budget, because this is gonna become a full-time job.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
usually connected with,
Yeah.
if there's
Everything
an
does.
established DPW, usually connected with them, because part of the program becomes a reduction of pavement, if you can accomplish it, an installation of stormwater runoff settling basins or catchments, or, in other words, a correction, like we have stream crossings where basically the stormwater from the street, it directly drops right into the stream. We're going to need to figure out how to appropriately design.
Well, I noticed
Our
up on,
roadways.
if you look at the new project up on 95, they got stormwater ponds popping up all over the place next to the highway for
Yeah.
catching stormwater before it
Yeah.
goes anywhere else. Are you gonna have are we gonna be able to come up with a budget scenario? I mean,
That
we're
is-
entering,
Yes.
we're entering the budget season, and I'm
And
wondering
that has been a-
what kinds of money are we gonna be able to estimate that we might potentially need in the
That has been
budget
a
to
focus of the discussion of the collaborative, because the collaborative at Merrimack Valley Planning Commission was initiated as part of the DPW directors meeting that occurs monthly there, and that was identified as like topic and task number one, to try and see if Horsley and Witten
That's the next
could
fiscal
put
year.
together some type of guidance
Yeah.
as to what the economic and budgetary constraints were. We're gonna talk later on about a comment letter going in to EPA as to whether Raleigh wishes to have their own comment letter. But one of the topics of a number of different communities was trying to impress upon EPA that they need to consider what the budgetary process is in cities and towns, because they may tell us to do something, but if you go to town meeting and town meeting doesn't authorize the expenditure of the funds, or you don't, or these requirements and these obligations come into play out of the cycle for us to get appropriate budgetary approval, that it's just not going to work, not going to be a smooth implementation where there's already this problem with the fact that our budgets are already pretty much strained for what the requirements are right now to meet our communities. The good news is we have a stormwater and erosion control bylaw. For a city, it would be an ordinance. We already have that in place with the things that are listed on this slide: site inspections, sediment control requirements, requirements to control waste, and site plan review. That is already accomplished both between cooperation of the Conservation Department with the Planning Department, as well as with the fact that we have bylaw in place, which may need to be revised based on some of these requirements, but substantially we're already in compliance with that. Post-construction stormwater management. This is one of the items that is changed in this permit, and that is that from redevelopment or new development that disturbs greater than an acre or more, they will have to treat and capture the first 1 inch of runoff. I believe the criteria in the past has been the first ½ inch. And this is probably going to get commentary delivered to the EPA also, but this may be realistic because our precipitation levels here in the Northeast have been climbing, and there is analysis being done right now by DEP to change. I think in this area, the standard has been to treat based on a 6-inch rainfall, and I think the standard is possibly going to be up to 8 inches within a 24-hour period. As far as how you design your stormwater treatment systems for new development and for redevelopment. This is probably a good example of a separate workshop that I attended
down in Leominster, where they have moved to capture and treat, and basically that means infiltrate stormwater as close to on the street where it's originated, instead of waiting for it to go all the way down through their storm sewer system and be discharged into a stream. In their case, they have a brook that runs through the middle of the community that they've done a lot of effort in putting in tree and planting infiltration areas such as this. But this is just, call it green design, call it low-impact development. It also ends up making good monetary sense, because it turns out this is usually on par with the cost spent for subsurface concrete piping and stormwater basins, if you can design it into what you have already there. O&M stands for Operations and Maintenance Procedures. This is something that all our municipal departments are going to start to be, need to be aware of for their individual facilities. All of our town buildings, most of our departments, offices or whatever, all have impervious parking areas, all discharge stormwater that probably right now isn't undergoing any type of treatment or capturing or infiltration at all. And so there's going to be focus on attending to that. In other words, don't just require to the new developments and the redevelopments, but also look at your pre-existing municipal facilities. This includes catch basin cleaning, which I know is already done on a very predictable basis here in town.
We're probably gonna wind up at least twice a year.
I don't know. I don't know.
That
There's,
would be my guess.
we're actually, this next slide, talking about discharges to impaired waters. Well, that's a fancy way of saying that the rivers and streams already have some measurable levels of different pollutants in them, such as nitrogen, phosphorus, or whatever, and that therefore a TMDL is called total maximum daily load. And in some water courses, they've already mandated what that level is, and therefore it needs to be addressed and treated. And so the community has to treat water to a certain level of cleanliness and try to address all the discharges. If you don't have an improved TMDL for a particular water course, I have to find out what that means, because I believe the two major water courses that are in our community, the Raleigh River, well, and I count the Raleigh River and the Egypt River kind of together, and then the Mill River, I believe are both indicated as being impacted, but I don't believe they have a regulatory mandated limit set on them already. This is some of the
Yeah, and some
dotting
of
i's
those-
and crossing the t's that I've got to get involved with that would be very community
Are
specific.
farms involved in this?
I'm sorry?
Farmland? How does that?
Well, everybody can be a source of polluted runoff, if I may
I'm thinking
use that.
particularly nitrogen and
that
stuff
term.
like that in the.
Well, but it
farm.
also has to do with your regimen of plowing the fields, and whether you use contour plowing, whether you leave a vegetated buffer, because you get runoff from all areas, in any type of earth disturbance, be it plowing or be it a construction site, all loosens dirt and sediment and possibly allows it to run off and be a problem. So yes, so that may be one of our targeted audiences.
Right. We're looking at potential of building retention ponds, the town, or infiltration ponds, things like that.
You know, it's really hard to say. We have a number of, well, without looking up the exact details, I speculate that most subdivisions that were constructed in Raleigh since the late 70s, let's say the 80s, have all had some type of stormwater system. Mostly though, since I think 1998, there's been more criteria developed by the Commonwealth, especially through DEP and their stormwater standards, that has put more of a design standard. I'll use Wilson Pond Lane as an example, down at the end of the cul-de-sac just before it transitions to Cindy Lane. There actually is a stormwater basin there, but basically it is a hole in the ground that has an outlet pipe that goes directly points towards
Pond.
the pond, and the pond, with the help of beaver activity, sometimes comes up and goes into the basin. It's not what we would today consider a well-engineered stormwater basin. We may have to seek to rectify situations like that. But we do also have a lot of more recently constructed subdivisions that have very adequate and well-designed stormwater treatment systems. That, based on my experience of being here during the Mother's Day flood of 2006, some of them operated very well. And they just might need to have us check in on them and actually maintain them, especially after we accomplished street acceptance. I know there's some that are filled with trees that we need to do a little clearing and stuff. I just included this slide in here, discharges to bacteria impaired waters, not because I'm saying we have a problem, but we possibly do, because we do have a number of shellfish bed closures during the year, which are, I believe, triggered by rainwater, by storm events. This is just one of the things that we'll need to communicate best management practices, and also the program of looking for illicit discharges is meant to address such things as this, is to try and to make sure that there aren't any unknown sewage discharges that get into stormwater outlets, since never the two are supposed to meet. And discharges to chloride impaired waters, again, I don't know that we have any water bodies that are actually designated such as this, but this does point to the focus on salt reduction plans, whereas we work with the highway department to focus on how much sodium chloride is being used as ice preventative measures, and try to make what is used as efficient as possible, which I believe the highway department is already doing, because that's an expense. But it also has ramifications on impacting water quality.
We frequently see signs that posted on the highway, reduce salt area,
Right.
to let the drivers know that they're using less salt in that particular area
Yeah.
because of the possibility of pollution into the neighboring ponds.
And we may even seek to apply to Mass DOT for possible consideration of some of Route 1 here, which goes right through ours.
1 and 95 both.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mill River goes right under 1,
Right.
95.
So I was kind of giving you a short little overview of the presentation that I went to. And
Well, it sounds like, Brent, that whatever we can do collaboratively,
well, yes.
we need to do. And even if we're sending comments, I mean, unless we come up with, or you probably, or Debbie, come up with some specific comments that,
Well, I believe I already copied the board here on a draft that Merrimack Valley Planning Commission prepared on the basis of the collaborative. But the suggestion, and I'm one of the ones who made the suggestion, was that even if we just wanted to say the same things that are being said in this letter by Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, I think it's important for each community to say something, even if we're all saying some of the same things.
And that-
No,
that
well,
would be
because I
something.
think it all boils down to that right now, we haven't quite figured out what the shared things are going to be, how many of those there's going to be, and what the individual responsibility is going to be. But the scary document was an Excel spreadsheet listing all the individual to-do items coming out of that draft permit, which ended up being something like 240 lines long. Well, it's a scary document because it isn't based on what might be the obligation of the individual community, because I think we're all going to have some different components of this. And as I mentioned, like the illicit discharge thing, a community that has municipal sewage and municipal stormwater pipes all in the same public right-of-way, they certainly are going to have much more obligations and have to do a much better job, have to do a much more detailed and more time-consuming and staff-consuming job to track illicit discharges. But that's not to say that we aren't going to have some obligation under that part of the permit. We will have, and it's, again, as kind of a, we're blessed and we're cursed.
Yes.
We're blessed because we're on the coast and have one of the greatest last estuaries and salt marshes here on the East Coast, right within our community, that has the shell fishery and has fisheries and has recreational opportunities. But we're cursed because that means we've got these waterways, these rivers, Parker River, Mill River, Merrimack River, they're passing through many other communities, getting all sorts of insults from stormwater from there, and then they come down and we get it. And we get it after somebody's already done it to it, so to speak. So I say but we have to deal with it and make sure that we're a good citizen too.
Right, and one of the things you mentioned was the Egypt River and Raleigh River. Well, we pretty much can control Raleigh River, but Egypt River is basically Raleigh River.
Right.
And it originates in another community.
Yes. Yeah.
And we cannot control that community. So
Right.
we're going to have testing done on our end, and it's going to show poor results. And we can't do anything about it because of the other. So the communities are going to have to work together
Yeah.
to solve a problem like that.
Right. Well, and I believe right now the testing is mostly focusing on any discharges from any of our drains.
Only our drains, okay?
Right. I'm not sure that it's mandating just generalized testing of the water course. I've got to get into some of those nitty-gritty details and actually find out, but I know that the focus is in on what do our town roads and roadways, what do they have for stormwater drainage systems? Where's the outlet? Have you tested the outlet? What's it discharging to? Is it discharging directly? Is the stormwater dropping right into a stream, or is it being filtered and any type of infiltration being accomplished before it gets there? I think those are the things that to us may become the most challenging, because we don't have a lot of topographic relief, and I'll just use School Street as an example, since it's near the annex building where I work and where we did our first stenciling of storm drains there. There's hardly any height to where the roadway crosses the stream. So it becomes a challenge to, even if you wanted to put a catch basin in there, you hardly have any depth before you get into groundwater. And so the strategy has got to be something different, and got to be some type of interception strategy back away from that particular water course crossing.
Speaking of that, we do have some sort of treatment there, right? At the
Well, yes, the storm treat system that was put in with
Is-
Mr. Puritan and the
right.
Conservation Commission.
Is that really is that working? Do we know?
I haven't, I'll probably have to accomplish a testing of its outfall, but the previous highway department surveyor, Mr. Levitt, I had touched base with him as to whether he was checking it, and he didn't say he was doing it on an annual basis, but I think he said that every couple of years he looked at it to see, and I looked at it a couple of years ago and saw that it appeared to be functioning, and the outflow that was coming out of its discharge pipe was perfectly clear.
Oh, that's a
pure,
good
so-
thing.
But those types, we're going to have to get better at something that I don't think any city or town has done well, and that is going back and revisiting and doing the periodic maintenance of some of these things that have been.
I think
systems, yeah.
that the highway, I know that the prior highway surveyor, Scott Levitt,
Mhm.
was testing that, I believe, and I don't know, you know, if how often he did it, but I do remember conversations and going back to when Tim Purington worked for the town, and,
Conservation, he was in the conservation department.
yes, so that was,
By better, I
Probably
just
more
mean we
than
have
10
to
years
get more
ago.
structured and have to start documenting some of this and just do
I
it.
think
on-
it's important too, that the sooner we get some financial impact data or the idea of it, because we're gonna be working very, you know,
It's gonna be
once,
very
once
important.
Christmas is gone here, we're getting deep into budgets.
Yeah.
And, if we've gotta set money aside for some of this stuff, we really need to, it's gonna have an impact on other areas of the budget, I'm sure, so.
We may need, just because, you know, I've given you an overview, but, you know, to be honest with you, that's kind of where I'm at on this too. We may need at some point in time to consider the possibility of hiring a consultant to help us zero in and put some things in place so we can actually start assigning hours of staff time and which staff or whatever to some things to help with that, because right now where it's kind of nebulous in terms of it's a 200-page permit even without the appendices. Well, yeah, it's a challenge to read it, and then it's a challenge to interpret and figure out what is Rowley's responsibility going to actually be here? What do we actually need to do?
To do, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why I started to look at that illicit discharge program to try and get a sense, well, what does this really drill down to? What does Rowley need to put on paper and actually do with our particular situation to meet the obligation of this?
we did use a consulting engineering firm back for the first phase, when the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, and we used Haley and Ward, and they had outlined what we had to do in year 1 and year 2, and we segregated the different tasks and had meetings with a cross-section of all the departments that were involved in it, and I can foresee something like that coming on the horizon. However, as I understand, some of the things that we discussed this evening with Mr. Bazak are phased in. Not
Yes.
everything is gonna hit us. Now, I understand Massachusetts, they're looking at 1 year from now, December of 2015, is when it would go into effect. So we
And then
would
there's
need
like a 6-month period after that is what we've heard in
a
terms
grace
of.
period of
Well,
maybe.
or however you want.
You have to have commitments on when you're going to do things, so you have those commitments, but, so for the next year's budget, I think that, we're not anticipating, funding everything that's being discussed here, whether or not it's shared and there's an assessment to MVPC on a whole collaborative wide contract, or we have independent things. So I think, part of it is when they finally release the permit, which it's very difficult now because it's still in draft form, when are we gonna start having to phase some of those things in, and what can be shared with, through the collaborate?
Yeah, thank you. That is an important point, that not all the duties and obligations are triggered for the first
Right off.
year. I think 1 or 2 of the slides mentioned about by year 2, do this or whatever.
But might it be worthwhile to start setting some funding aside incrementally? So that-
Well, certainly, because as I just mentioned, yes, we have River's Edge Drive. We have a stormwater basin at the end of River's Edge Drive that's becoming ingrown and turning into a forest. And stormwater basins are not supposed to be treed and forested. It cuts down on the efficiency and destabilizes the banks of them. So there are some things that could be started at this point in time that would not be overly economically burdensome or requiring a huge commitment of funds, but that we know will be coming.
It might be wise just
Down
to
the
start,
road.
to set aside for
Right.
specific things,
The-
and then
Separate
money
Budget
within.
item for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, some kind of a budget item.
And the
that
other thing
could
I
be used for
mentioned
variety.
to talking to Town Administrator Deborah Egan is that I don't know, we had Merrimack Valley Planning Commission do the mapping of the outfalls. I'm not exactly sure whether that encompassed all of our outfalls, because at the time that was done, we had those two discontiguous areas, and now with the census change, we basically have, for all intents and purposes,
Together.
most of the town that's populated
Yeah.
and built up. And so I can, as sure as the sun will rise tomorrow behind the clouds and the rainstorm,
rain.
I can tell you that we'll need to have an
Stormwater, is that what you're saying?
we'll need to have an entire mapped stormwater roadway system, so we know where there aren't, where there are drains, where they discharge to. and
You've
stuff
made
like
our
that.
night, because when it rains tomorrow, we'll be driving down the roads wondering, where is that water going and what is it carrying?
How much do you think that we should put aside?
That's probably at this point.
That's why that's
hard to
why
say,
I
with the
know.
collaborative, we told Horsley and Whitnell, I'd start
I think
working
we'll
on that
keep it
right
in the-
away.
We'll keep it
'cause-
in the back of our mind as we're doing the budgets.
Have you, have you heard anything from other communities of what they were doing?
Well, I think Newbury told me that, and I'm trying to remember the exact figure, but that they had been putting, I think it was a minimum of $5,000 for stormwater-related activities in their annual budget for I don't know how long now. I think under phase 2, they started doing it.
We're
Now-
not even,
now
we're
what
not
they-
even close to that, but we've been
What they've been
working on
doing
it.
with that, I don't honestly know. We did collaborate with them and were invited in those couple of public events for young folks that they held up at the Parker River National Wildlife Refuge. We joined in that as part of our education and
Do-
public outreach.
Has any coastal community in Massachusetts been ahead of the game on this? Or is it everybody in the same boat?
No, there apparently are some communities that are ahead of this. Oh, okay, so this brings into funding, and I'm only gonna talk about funding in relationship to what you just asked me.
Okay.
I believe the town of Reading, I believe the city of Newton, and there might be somebody else who I can't remember right now, but they have put into place a stormwater utility. And they have figured out an assessment rate based on impervious area to private property owners, where they have issued bills, and they take that money and they use that money and direct it to either activities by private contractors that they hire, or to their DPW yard to specifically do things such as put in stormwater basins on roadways that haven't had any type of treatment. Or I believe the community of Franklin, I think their funding was not through a stormwater utility, but I think their funding was just budget line item. They have specifically done projects where residential streets that had 2 sidewalks, they removed 1. In other words, they've done pavement reduction projects as well as putting in stormwater basins. They've looked at it from the standpoint of just putting in a basin to treat the runoff. Okay, but what if we reduce the amount of money, reduce the amount of runoff that we have to treat? That way we get a savings in not only generating what has to be treated, but then we have to put in just a smaller treatment facility, so to speak, or basin, or however they want to do it. So
that's gone across in some communities.
Well, the bad thing, I almost hate to use them as an example, though. The bad thing is that they're at the headwaters of the Charles River, where they're under a separate, much more onerous administrative consent order, I think, from the EPA, due to the impairment of the waters of the Charles River, you know, love that dirty water song.
If I could offer a comment, I grew up in Cambridge. And in the 40s, the joke was that we had the Charles River right across the street from the house that you could walk across because you had no fear of sinking in. It was so polluted.
Yeah. Or you didn't need to buy ice melt because you could just use the water and it would melt the ice to begin with, right?
Yep.
It's changed a lot, though.
Yes, it has changed a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Well, I'm glad you brought us such good news. Not your fault, nothing personal.
Mr. Chairman, so
Yes.
one last piece, Mr. Bazak brought up the fact that, municipalities are sending letters to, Mr. Tedder at the EPA, and, we have a draft of a letter that, MVPC Director Dennis DeZoglio has prepared to, I guess, just for us to look at. So,
Well, this is so we knew
This is
what
probably-
the collaborative
this
had
is gonna
put
be going
together.
out soon, I guess, and so should the Board of Selectmen then send a letter as well? I mean, I think that's what they're encouraging all the municipalities.
I think if we could get,
Yeah.
could you draft up,
We can probably extract some of the information in here, so we're not.
And there was one thing
reinventing.
that I added, I called Joel, I can't remember what his last name was, at Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, because I had made a comment I attended the last meeting of the collaborative, and I said that this letter didn't seem to also address, at where the EPA did this presentation, DEP personnel was there and brought up, and plus a couple of participants brought up the fact that there's some things within the EPA permit that aren't exactly meshing in and dovetailing with DEP's stormwater standards. And we felt that could possibly set up not only a conflict, but also cause some poor interpretations if the state regulator of the environment didn't have the same type of outlook on stormwater that the federal regulator, EPA, had, that it would be better to make them mesh. So if
Okay.
everybody was on a march to these new stormwater standards, we wanted them marching in step, to use the analogy. We wanted things to be synonymous.
We were talking about Joe Crosgrove from MBPC?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I think we
Yeah,
should-
he was coordinating this
Yeah,
letter.
He's the environmental person,
Yes.
yes.
Well, I think we should definitely draft our own letter based on the model.
Right.
And anything additional that you or anyone else sees a need for. I think the more paper they get, at least get our point across. Whether it does any good or not might be irrelevant, but at least I think it's important
Well-
that we show the interest that we're seriously looking at this.
Yeah.
And,
And I'll be very honest with you, right from when I first started attending the EPA workshops on this, specifically about the permits, and because Southern New Hampshire got their permit just a little while ago, I've been trying to impress upon the EPA personnel that in a rural community without a lot of infrastructure, and I try to emphasize, without a lot of stormwater infrastructure, it's, I think, more of a challenge if you've already got catch basins and stuff on your streets, and you've already got a subsurface stormwater system. That's real easy to check. Pop the grate on the catch basin, check it out. If that catch basin doesn't have oil and grease separation in it, okay, you need to update that and get it so it has oil and grease separation. And, oh, I know where the outfall is, so I'll go test that outfall. What do I do on, let's say, Cross Street? What do I do on Cross Street?
it's right
If
there.
I look for a
almost
catch,
street
if I
level.
look for a catch basin, I'm not gonna find it, I don't think. I don't think there's a catch basin anywhere on Cross Street. So if I go down to where Ox Pasture Brook goes underneath Cross Street, I've got no stormwater infrastructure there. But, okay, what am I supposed to do? How do I address that? Now, yes, there probably are ways that we can address it. We've got to design something. But I almost think it's harder to go from a situation where you've got rural drainage of just ditch and culverts than to go from a situation where you've already got curbing, you've already got catch basins. I mean, I'm not trying to,
Plus, you got no
I'm
drop
not
in
trying to
elevation.
sing
so
poor
you're
as me.
dealing with things that are
Well,
only a
that's the
foot or
other thing,
two
too.
difference from the road depth to the stream depth. So
exactly.
what can you do with that? I don't know. I'm
Right.
sure somebody will have an
Right.
answer.
Well,
And it won't be free.
I just figured they didn't want to talk to me too much after that because they didn't have,
Well, I think we need to
have
emphasize.
the answer
I
because
think
I was.
that's what we need to emphasize in our
We
report,
have
in our.
some country
report.
roads everywhere, Newberry Road, Leslie
all the same.
Road,
Right.
Cross Street,
And
I
that-
mean, west and east side of town, so, I
And I'm not saying there isn't
No, but this-
something we can do about
this is a
stormwater. I'm
big
just
problem.
saying, I think it possibly becomes a challenge, and it's a challenge to a community that already doesn't have a robust established DPW, that doesn't have a town engineer or engineering department. And
Yep. So,
yeah,
Enough said.
I
we
enough,
know.
enough. So again,
Okay.
there is stuff we can do, but I think there's got to be that understanding that in a rural situation, there's got to be some different
definitely.
strategies. Having my go to the workshop where the guy says he took out a sidewalk is great. Then I come here and I'm like, sidewalk? What sidewalk? So I'm gonna take out a sidewalk from a street that's got two sidewalks? Where am I gonna do that?
Can narrow Dodge Road and by a foot.
yeah. Are we going
What's a
to,
sidewalk?
Oh, so if you can collaborate with the town administrator, between the two of you, and come up with our own draft, I think that would be what we should do, in addition to signing on to anything that MVPC does.
I think that we need to take the MVP draft and kind of
Right.
manipulate it into our circumstances.
The rural small
Yeah, no,
town and the
definitely.
town
Yeah.
is, that is Mr.
Yeah.
Bazelak just explained.
do you need a motion to send our own
Well,
version? Or,
we can draft it and get it back for you for a future meeting, or
Yeah, maybe
we'll
that's,
just,
that should be
That's
fine.
probably-
I think at this point, that's probably just enough.
I think we have till
Yeah.
the 29th. We have till December 29th for accepting written comments.
Okay.
get it on the next agenda.
Yeah. Not a lot of time. Okay, thank you.
All right, that's it.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank
That
you,
was a
Brandon.
very
Do you want
nice
this back?
setup you made there.
Good presentation.
We got one in our package here, so.
That's cheaper than having a fancy computer system.
I
Joe.
take exception to that.
Oh, Peter, well, that wasn't on the table before, was it?
Looking for the remote control to have the screen rolled out.
As soon as we get the stormwater situation taken care of, we'll be able to afford one. Okay, moving on. Brent, thank you very much.
Any idea of further assistance to the board this evening?
If I were you, I'd get out of here quick.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brett.
Good job, Bud.
Okay, so we're down to new business number 3. It's a memorandum, December 1st, Board of Selectmen, 2015 liquor license renewals. All current liquor license holders have submitted their 2015 renewal during the month of November in accordance with the law, except for Rowley Enterprises, Inc., DBA Skip's Country Store. The application was sent to Shimami Hader. The contract name and address on file for Skip's Country Store. On October 23rd, 2014, with instructions to return the completed application to the Selectmen's office no later than Wednesday, November 26th, 2014 at 4 p.m. The law requires that all renewals are signed and filed with the local licensing authority during the month of November, and if not, it will be treated as a new license application if they wish to continue holding a liquor license. I called the contact number on file on November 25th, 2014, to remind them of the deadline. The woman who answered the phone told me that Shamimi Hayder was no longer involved in the license and to call Alan at another number. I left the voicemail for Alan on November 15th and again on November 26th. My voicemail to Alan on the 26th explained that if we do not receive a signed renewal by the deadline in November, that the renewal cannot be processed, and if they wish to maintain their liquor license, they will have to file an application for a new license. Alan has not returned regarding this license. What is our wish?
So nothing's changed since that December 1st memo, so I say we let, if they want to continue the license, they're gonna have to get a new, I mean.
Yeah,
what
have
if
to
they're
apply for a new.
new- We've bent over backwards, or the officers have bent over backwards to
Try to get them to
get a
respond.
hold of these people. I'd say
Yep.
that if they don't put an application in for a new license and go through that process, that January 1st, they're not selling
They're all
anymore.
done, and I think we need to do that.
Yeah, no,
If they're
I
not gonna
agree.
respond. I mean,
Yeah.
we've done our best to try to get them. I think Debbie and I discussed it, and we were going to send one more letter,
Nothing came back today.
All right,
And-
then.
Nothing, so.
and that was gonna be our
Yeah.
last time,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, it's quite astonishing. I mean,
Well, we don't
I've
even have the
already-
correct information for who's got the current license, apparently,
Well-
right? So, I mean, it sounds like it's a nightmare, I'd just say.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think notification should probably go fairly soon out of this office, because I don't really know what's going on down
Yeah,
there,
no.
and if they're ordering and.
Yeah, that's
And
the
so,
other
you know,
issue we gotta do. Once we make
and
this
deliveries.
decision,
Well, if we don't give them a renewal for next year,
we need to notify.
January 1st, they're not selling any more liquor,
Right.
any more alcohol.
We need to
That's it.
notify the
Yeah.
police department to keep an eye on the place to make sure that they're not selling liquor
Yes.
without a license.
Yeah.
Yes.
So. Okay, I guess that's agreed. Do you want a motion for that, Deb?
We should have a letter from the selectmen, yes.
Okay.
I'll give you the motion to
I'll
have a
second.
letter sent.
Motion made and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. That's number 3. New business number 4. Liquor license renewals. The following licenses have been reviewed and are in order with all taxes, water, and light bills paid. Please make a motion to approve and sign the licenses. Grape Island, Inc., DBA Mill River Winery. Rowley Liquors, Inc., DBA Rowley Liquors. Nippon,
Tappatica gig.
thank you, Dave.
Close enough, I guess.
TJ Thai, Inc., DBA Royal Orchid. Note, other renewals have been submitted, but the applicants are either missing some information or the applicants owe money to the town.
I'll give you the motion to sign approve and sign those licenses for those 3 establishments.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. That was number 4. Request for Raphael Rainers, DBA RJ Rainers Transportation and Truck Center, to change name on current Class 2 dealer license to RJ Rainers Transportation and Center, Inc. J.R. Rainers Transportation Truck Center has submitted a complete renewal and are current on all taxes, water, and light bills. In addition to the renewal, they would like to change their name. See attached letter. They would like their name to be updated on their current license and their renewal license. Please make a motion to approve the name change and to sign their license, sign their revised 2014 license.
I'll give you the motion to approve the name change and sign the license.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Class 2 dealer's license renewals. The following licenses have been reviewed and are in order with all taxes, water, and light bills paid. Please make a motion to approve and sign the licenses. Okay. William Cuddy, Hamilton Enterprises, Used Cars, LLC. Thomas Brochure, Brochure Automotive Machine Shop, Inc. Frank Lovinelli and James Price, Car Lines. Dale and Roy Ducro, Rowley Auto Brokers. Tim Slattery, Camping World Lease Company, LLC. Mark Olette and M&J Foreign Cars, Inc. And I will take a vote on those.
I'll give you that motion.
A second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. The next one, actually, I'm going to do the next two. Donald and Mark Savy, Bay Road Auto Sales, 56 Newburyport Turnpike, location. Frank Minajani, Regulatory Compliance, suggested after his site visit that the board may wish to request a sketch of the property showing the designated spaces for vehicles that are for sale. Does the board wish to request this?
Isn't he in the midst of a
He's dealing with the planning board right at this
planning
point.
board of the ZBA on putting a building in and so on and so forth?
I believe so.
Let's see,
He said,
we've been asked to comment on that, so I'm wondering,
Clear, I think, which cars were for sale.
okay, so I guess there was some confusion on Frank's part, when we sent him out, as he does every year for annual compliance check. He wasn't sure which were for sale and which weren't, but there were a number of vehicles there. So it was just a suggestion, it's not
Yep.
meant to be anything more than that.
or maybe we can delay that and see what
What comes out with the
comes
planning
out
issues.
of the planning issues and,
We may be able to suggest to the planning board that they, because I guess they're gonna move some,
well, they're
remove
moving some stuff
buildings
around and then
and
making a
stuff.
new building or something.
Yeah, so I mean, if they could,
I know it's an ongoing,
if they get their permit and if that's the process, then maybe they could designate
it
some
appeared
areas
that the
specifically for
whole
that.
lot was gonna have a lot of changes take place on
Yeah.
it, so rather than do
Okay.
this now and then.
Well, I would be afraid, their license will expire at the end of the year, and that would have an impact on his business.
Right,
No, I would renew the license, I just
With the
wouldn't bother
condition that
with-
we get a sketch or something,
Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
maybe we could put a note on the license, just request a sketch. I mean, it's nothing we have to do formally, but just to get an idea and
Yeah.
then follow up. Just to not make it too complicated, that's all.
okay, and
Until
also.
he gets his lot squared away.
Yeah, also I'd like to do Donald and Mark Savory, Bay Road Auto Sales, 588 Main Street location.
I'll give you the motion on those two with the stipulation of a note to be attached on the first one.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify
Yeah.
by saying aye.
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 And I recuse myself. Okay, the next one is Philip S. Mumley, Auto Pro Collision Center LLC, Gino Tezordis, Gino's Collision Center Inc., Dale Litvineva, Auto Parts Unlimited Inc. I'm gonna slaughter them,
That was
but
very good.
just spell them right on the license, that's all I ask.
You're right in my footsteps.
J.R. Reiner's Transportation and Truck Center, Inc.
I'll give you that motion.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Note, other renewals have been submitted, but the applicants are either missing some information or the applicants owe money to the town.
Debbie, what happens to these people that we overlooked tonight, that they owe money? I mean, they know they're not gonna get a renewal or
I
till the
think
taxes
Amy's
are
waiting
paid
on
or-
that. They're coming in, and it's a daily discussion, I think, with Amy to
'cause
check
they're
and
gonna be
make sure.
meeting the deadline in 3 weeks for these people. They gotta,
Exactly,
they're not gonna
so,
be in business, right? Without a license, January 1. Is there many?
There's probably 2 to 3 for each
Oh.
category. So we're doing the majority of the renewals this evening.
So
Hope
this-
they're aware of it.
And we got a couple more meetings
after
anyway,
this.
right
Yeah.
before.
So, you know,
Yeah.
we're responsible, is, a few years ago, as you remember, we have to have the bonds, municipalities were given that responsibility under the Lemon Law. They sent that down to us.
Yeah.
So we're chasing them, they have insurance companies, and, you know, faxes are coming in, and so, it's always these last minute things of trying to get everything pulled together. Workers' comp affidavit has to be in by law. We're responsible for that compliancy. So there's so many pieces to it, not just filling the renewal out, you know. So it's Amy's been very busy. The phone's ringing. People are coming in. So hopefully, within the next few meetings, with 2 more meetings after this.
They get squared away.
Mm.
And it's not our fault if they don't do that. I mean, if
No.
they're in business and they had these licenses, they know what the process is.
That's right.
Right.
So, okay, new business number 7 is Class 3 dealer license renewals. The following licenses have been reviewed and are in order with all taxes, water, and light bills paid. Please make a motion to approve and sign the license. Donald and Mark Savory, Rowley Auto Salvage, Inc., 588 Main Street, location.
I'll give you the motion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I recuse. Note, the other renewal has been submitted, but the applicant owes money to the town. Okay, item number 8 under new business is auto auction renewals. The one renewal has been submitted, but the applicant owes money to the town. So that one goes by. Item number 9, under new business, stable license permits, renewals. The following license renewals have been reviewed and are in order with all taxes, water, and light bills paid. Please make a motion to approve and sign these licenses. Megan Bossino, Bossino, okay. Wuthering Heights Farm, 66 Cross Street. Dennis Pellicina, 179 Boxford Road. Ann Cole Belkek, Winthrop Farm, 183 Rear Havel Street. Requesting limited increase to 25 horses from 22 horses. Rachel Murin, Kittery Avenue Farm, LLC, 59 Kittery Avenue. Christine Cassenti, Chrysler Farm, 944 Havel Street. Bruce E. Tompkins, Bart Farm, 74 Long Hill Road. Leslie Mullane, Billy Bow Farm, 204 Dodge Road, requesting limited increase to 14 horses from 10 horses.
I'll give you the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Joshua Noble, Berkland Farm, 424 Main Street, has submitted an application for a 2014 stable license and a renewal for the 2015 stable license. These have been reviewed and are in order with all taxes, water, and light bills paid. Please make a motion to approve and sign the 2014 license and the 2015 renewal.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 10, Lee Market license renewals. The following license renewals have been reviewed and are in order with all taxes, water, and light bills paid. Please make a motion to approve and sign these licenses. Frank Shirley Todd, Todd's Riverview Farm, LLC, 275 Main Street. Star P. Todd, Todd Farm, LLC, 283 Main Street.
I'll make a motion, we grant them.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I oppose, I'll recuse. Okay. Now, if I am correct, and please tell me if I'm not, I think we've got through the major part of it. And we only have the announcements left.
Wrong.
No, we have
One-
business.
We need to hear from Joe.
Old business number one. You're
Trying to
absolutely
cut Joe
right.
out of the.
Cutting me off.
Well, you
Can't get out of here.
scared,
I'll
you
give it-
scared the
Mr.
daylights
Chair.
out of me with this newfangled equipment you brought into the office
That's when he's
tonight.
gonna make a presentation.
Yeah, I'm afraid we'll be here till midnight. That's what I'm afraid of. I tried, guys.
I won't go over 3 hours.
Okay. Joe,
Just because I can't read the little print.
I apologize.
Yeah.
How's that? Does that work?
We don't, Joe.
I know better. Okay, what I'm reporting on is the stadium renovation project. The stadium has been condemned by the town of Newbury. There will not be an outdoor graduation in June because of the condemnation of the stadium. The football team had a few home games early in the season, but their final games, if they were to be played at home, they had no home field to play them on. And if they wanted a practice fields, they would have to go to another town and rent time, and it would run from $275 to $325 an hour. And so I think we ought to get behind the stadium renovation project, but that's my own personal opinion.
I have a suggestion.
Yes.
We will only charge 3/4 of what the others are charging, and let them use the town common.
If you, I think everybody has a package. If you look at, I'm going to work mostly off of page 2 and go into some of the other things. There is, the committee came out with a revised or an early estimate of approximately $3 million. There have been some revisions, and it is now up to $3.997998 million. And let me give you some updates on that. When the current stadium that has been condemned does not have any restroom facilities. The state requires that the stadium have restroom facilities. So even if we were to get a waiver so that we only meet half of the state's requirements for restroom facilities, they're using that figure in the amenities building. The amenities building also includes a concession area and a team meeting area. And one of the things that we spent some time on at the meeting is to point out that the team meeting area in this new building does not have a restroom. So, but the athletic director was at the meeting, and he said, if we had a team room where the team could meet at halftime or before they went out on the field, that would be a major step up for the program. They would consider it a major advantage, and they would appreciate it. Right now, the halftime, they go into the middle school, into the corridor area, and that's where they have to go for their halftime meetings. So we're talking about design services. If you take a look at that second page, $135,000. Site preparation, erosion control, drainage, and retaining wall. Don't forget you have a marsh area on the far side that needs to be addressed, and that's $297,000. They did vote to go with a synthetic turf field. They haven't decided what exactly they're going to choose for the synthetic turf field that will be coming up at a future meeting. That would be up in the neighborhood of $771,000. The track in D-zone reconstruction and resurfacing, the track is in deplorable condition and would need to be reconditioned, and that's $544,000. Putting in a 1,500 person bleacher system would be $518,000, and upgraded lighting fixtures. And Brian went through some figures, Brian Forget, the assistant superintendent. This would allow us to rent the field out and get soccer leagues in there with the lighting fixtures, and we could make some money off of it, or at least cover the cost of the field. Walkway and fencing, $207,000. Bonds, equipment and landscaping, $259,000. The contingency, and if you look, I found it on, let's see, 2, 3, 4, on 5, you'll see a little star down to at the bottom of the page. The subtotal is $2,798,000, and they took 10% of that for the contingency, and so that's where the $279,882 came from. The amenities building they're talking about is $784,300, and they're talking about a single roof, and they're going to have a restroom facility, and they're going to have a separate building connected by this one roof with a concession stand in that team area, and also a very limited storage. The total project now comes to $3,997,000. If you look at funding estimates, I've lost my page. But on funding estimates, you're talking about $3,997,000. The donation is still on the table from the Institution for Savings for $525,000. They have funds raised from the Triton Education Fund is $110,000, and they have available gate receipts for $175,000. So that reduces that total cost for a preliminary required bonding of $3,187,000. We talked about payments. Annual payments are $278,000 to bond this for 15 years. And if we divide it equally among the 3 towns, it would be $92,667. If you went by foundation enrollment, you have to realize that even though we would be paying about $2,000 less, it would fluctuate because it's based on the foundation enrollment. So some years it could be lower, some years it could be higher based on the enrollment. Let me see. What the school committee would like, it is, by the way, the vote is all 3 towns will be voting on it. It's all or none. It's not a case of if 2 towns approve, then the other one has to go along with it. It's all 3, or the project doesn't go forward, they have to go with a plan B. So the school committee will be voting on a...
Excuse me, Joe.
Yes.
What would Plan B be?
They have no Plan B formulated as of yet. The school committee will be voting on about April 1st for an amount not to exceed. Okay? So they're going to go out for bids. Right now, the bids are kind of high. They feel that the bids should come in lower when the contractors don't have work that they currently have in-house, in that they should be able to do better. That's a hope. You also have to take into account, we have a problem for Raleigh in that we're looking for a public safety building. Salisbury has a problem. They have just completed the town library, and they are also talking about, I believe, either a public safety or a fire building.
Police
And
station, they're looking for a
Newbury
police
is
station.
talking about doing something on that same line. So we all have other commitments beyond this, but we really do have to do something about the situation up there. If we do make a commitment, it will take 2 years. No, they will be able to, if they do a grass field, it would take them 2 years before they would be able to play on the turf. And that's why they voted to go on the synthetic field. That would be able to go in September of 2015. And the revenues, if you take a 15-year cycle for the synthetic turf and the revenues from the field, being very conservative, Brian feels in the figures that he had that they could cover the cost and be able to renew the field every 15 years without any problem to any additional cost to the towns.
That would be the fees for renting out the field,
That's correct.
and that would take care of the turf.
That would, it would be maintenance of the field for each year, and it would be replacing the entire synthetic turf every 15 years. In the concession building, they were thinking that possibly, if you take a look at the building, they're talking about, what is it, the women's restroom has 12 stalls and the guys only have 8. But they were talking about maybe they'll just put in the restrooms and not do the concession stand. And my personal feeling, again, I offer this only as my personal feeling, is that if we don't put in the full amenities building and have an area, an entrance area to the field where they can sell tickets and have a concession stand, that it's going to be short-sighted, that we're going to pay more in the long run if we do it later. That's my personal opinion.
Was there any discussion with this school board about looking at the assessment coming up besides this project?
There is, yes. We did talk about the assessment. By the way, I'm glad you asked that. January 12th through the 15th will be public meetings. The 12th is our meeting night on a Monday night, which is usually the presentation by Pine Grove, which annoys me because it's during our meeting night. But that whole week, they're making their presentations of each of the schools, the middle school and the high school, to the school committee as to what they're looking for next year's budget. We are in agreement somewhat, I use that term loosely, that the 235 or is it $335 million shortfall by the state is going to cause some problems.
I thought it was more than that.
Was it?
I thought.
We're looking for what is Governor-elect Charlie Baker going to do about the budget. I have no clue as to what that's going to do. So there are a lot of issues, and there are a lot of concerns. That's what I would like to ask is, I'm going to a school committee meeting on Wednesday night. And I have a comment that I'd like to share with you afterwards, is that I'd like to be able to get a flavor of, I know it's early, I know we don't have tax dollars yet, we don't have a budget from the state, we need a lot more information, but, you know, should they go forward with the stadium renovation? Are we, is Raleigh going to participate with the stadium renovation, or are we not interested? I don't know how you feel. I'd like to get a flavor for how the board feels.
Well, I think, I would guess, we're interested, I'm sure we're interested. It's a matter of how we fund it, and that's, you know, if we have to go for an override, that makes it real iffy. If we can fund it through the regular budget process, it'll probably be difficult, but then it falls back on how much increase. So are we adding to the school budget in addition to this 92,000 or whatever it is?
Right, 92.
In other words, if we're gonna increase the budget by 5% plus add 92,000, we're gonna have a heck of a hard time trying to fund that without trying to do an override. I don't know, it's.
One thing that really scares me is that we're thinking about the state. The state is in terrible condition, and that's hanging over every city and town in the Commonwealth.
That's true.
And you know, when that really comes to fruition and that hits us, I mean, this could just, you know, knock the wind out of the city, our three towns.
It's definitely going to have an impact. No doubt about it. And I think it couldn't come at a worst possible time.
And I don't just see it as an impact. This is like a steamroller that's going to hit us. I mean, I'm really concerned about the state budget, but it's something that, you know, I don't know about the rest of you, but it's keeping me up.
I think we move forward with the idea that our intent is to try and fund it.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, and I know one of the issues that Triton runs into is, you know, they originally were gonna fund school busing reimbursements at 100%. Now they're taking all that away. They're taking away a lot of the special ed circuit breaker funding, and some of these things hit regional schools. The school busing issue hits regional schools real tough, where it doesn't hit the other schools. And you know, let alone, I think they're gonna try not to cut us back this year for the cherry sheet, you know, for the cities and towns. But next year, who knows?
I don't want you to go up there and you know.
I mean, we're trying to be positive.
Try to be positive
And see what they come up with, but
the realization is that the state budget is really.
I think they have to understand that in their regular budget process, that they really need to be tight.
Right.
If they're looking for this project,
Yes.
they need to really pull their strings in a little bit and be commonsensical about how much they want to increase the regular budget. I mean, I don't know what else we can say at this point.
Right. Yeah,
We're positive. We'd like to do it.
If you agree with me that, you know, the stadium has to be redone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a concern, but we do have financial concerns in a lot of areas that affect the tax rate here in Raleigh, the taxing monies,
In the other towns too.
in all three.
Yeah, I think we're all on
All
the same
three.
boat.
Yeah.
We've all got major projects in addition to the school. And, you know, we'll do the best we can. You know, we want to be positive and push this thing forward, but, you know, if a worst case scenario, we would have to put it on an
They're
over.
really gonna have to look at their budget this year.
Really is going
Really,
to have to
yeah,
take
really
a
gonna have to
strong
They're
indication.
gonna have to
Jeff?
toe
School
the line.
department, I mean, I've got to, whether we run Raleigh, the board of, you know, look at the affairs and our needs. School department gotta realize too, the school committee have got to look, the state money isn't there. We gotta take a cut, they're gonna have to look at cuts. That's my opinion.
They're really gonna have to look at the budget, really
Right, the budget,
scrutinize it.
get the pencils out.
It's not gonna, this is not gonna be like any other year that
No.
we've seen.
No, not in the last,
And
few years that
like you
I've
said,
seen.
they need the stadium, they're gonna have to really sharpen their pencils, as Jack said.
very definitely.
Yeah.
Mr. Mary?
I mean, we need it.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to look at it, but hopefully they realize that,
We don't pull that money out of the air.
try to put our budget together and keep the town running. And,
Right.
you know, we're pretty tight as far as what we can do, and who knows what we're gonna get this winter.
Exactly.
They're predicting heavy snows, so I mean, we'll be in the deficit again. So,
Yep. Okay.
As
Okay.
Mr.
Very
Murray
good.
said, our chairman,
Bob.
we're looking at a tough
Larry.
winter. Hopeful we're gonna get like tomorrow, rain.
Hopeful.
Storm.
no, I
We're
know
praying
that.
for rain all winter.
And
Yes.
I
We'll deal with
agree
the
with you.
stormwater instead of the snow.
Well, you know, Bob and I were down about the week, said we're done with the weather, and we said, you know, if this that's coming was another month from now, you know, the air's a little bit different, we're getting a
Lucky.
lot of snow.
It's
A
only-
lot.
It's only in the low 20s
Lot.
today. If
Yeah.
it was like that tomorrow, we'd be in trouble.
The news tonight said they were predicting if this was snow rather than rain tomorrow,
Yeah.
we would have at least 3 feet.
Yep.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, it's
Yeah, 30-odd inches, they were saying on TV.
So-
Yeah.
You were right.
Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
how can we predict?
No,
You
it's-
just can't. you
No.
know?
Larry has a comment?
Yep.
Yeah, I got a couple of things. One is, you know, we also have to consider, you know, with this stormwater runoff thing looming over our heads, you know, that's a Damocles sword with, you know, God knows how much it's going to cost us starting next year. And then just a couple of quick comments. I was looking at this, and you were talking about, you know, for the building over there, that there's 6 places for the men and 12 for the women. And I don't know whether that's a revision or not, but, you know, I have 7 and 14.
It's,
But one of my comments is on the other side where the team is and stuff like that, is the team room just for Triton, or do both teams share that?
no, that's just for the Triton.
Okay, so the visiting team,
Would still use the middle school.
okay. And also there's no restrooms on, you know, near the team room or something like that. Is
That's
that
correct.
typical? That,
From the discussion that I heard on Wednesday night, that's typical.
okay,
And as Brian was very quick to point out, that they would be more than willing to, you know, Gale Associates would be more than willing to add the facilities to the team room and put in a sauna and whatever else. It's just dollars.
right. Well, my concern is, we'll say, a oversight that, oh yeah, well, these things should add in, and, you know, now we're talking about, you know, cost overruns going from 4 million to up and up and up type of a thing.
Yeah.
That's
No,
my
that
only
is-
concern.
That is a deliberate design. That is the way I won't say all, but most facilities. And
Right.
as the athletic director pointed out, he thought that just having the team room would be a major step up for the program.
Right.
And that he would be thrilled with it, and that, you know, and yes, he did understand that there wouldn't be a restroom in that facility.
Okay,
You do understand that figure that they have there, the 784,000 plus,
Yes.
is a placeholder. That's not the figure. That's only to hold the place.
Yes. They have to get bids in the
Right.
spring.
Right, so I mean,
They have to put out the project for a bid.
well, that's just the building itself. That's the only one that actually says that. That placeholder, design pending. So it really hasn't even been designed yet.
Well,
Oh, here you go.
yes, I know. The decision is pending on whether, when they were talking at the district communications, and one of the members of the school committee said, well, you know, in making the decision, should they go ahead with the building as designed, with the concession stand and with the team room and with the storage area, or should they just go and put in the restroom area and just to the roof? And my personal opinion that I expressed at the meeting was that it would be short-sighted not to go and try to get the whole thing in. That it would cost us more eventually.
Good job, computer work.
Thank you. made it large enough so that I could read the figures.
Yeah, it's good. That was a nice job.
Good job, John.
Any other questions?
Good job.
Larry, you're all
No.
set? Thank you.
Larry.
Thank you very much. But I will be going to the school committee meeting Wednesday night.
Okay, I guess.
And I'm not gonna say that, you know, obviously, we're not ready to jump right in and say, oh, yeah, we're thrilled. But, hey, you know,
I think express our concerns.
yep.
You know,
I think it all depends that they,
Well, I won't be able to, at this formal committee meeting, it's not like the district communications where you get a chance to make comments and participate, that I will have 3 minutes
3 minutes.
if it's not on the agenda. Just, you know, I did give my, as I told them at the meeting, I was the concluding speaker, and I said, listen, I know at the other end of the extreme, and I don't want to be, you know, all doom and gloom, but I said, you got to be careful expressing, you know, exactly our feelings that it's going to be a tight budget year for the state, and we're going to be impacted. And we want to know how bad it's going to be, and we can't make a promise.
I think we need to try to support it.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be tough.
Right,
It really is.
right.
well, we're in favor of it, and I think they have to realize that if they're gonna get this project anyway, they're gonna have to keep their regular budget increase to a minimum.
Yes.
Yes.
I think that's among all three
They've got
towns.
to, my
You can't
my
expect to
feeling
come
is
in with a
that,
5 or
yes.
6% increase,
No.
plus this project, it isn't gonna fly.
Right,
Because we'll have to put it on an override.
All
If we
three
put it
towns
on-
are gonna have
Yeah.
trouble. I mean, Newton's trying to build a new police
Yeah,
station.
no,
yes.
everybody is.
And
Everybody's
so-
got something going.
So
This
it's
is,
just,
as Brian said, that this year is the perfect storm. Everybody's got something going. And this is a big budget year for all three towns, and it is the worst timing for the state budget to be in such a huge deficit. And what, to me personally, we've got to work with Bruce Tarr, and we've got to work with Brad Hill, and we've got to work with the new Republican governor and say, you know, hey, you've been hurting us for 8 years, you know, give us a break.
time will tell.
Hopeful, he will.
Time will tell.
We'll
Yep,
see what happens.
yep.
Yeah, he'll pull a rabbit out of the hat. Good luck on that one.
They might, they might. Okay, is there anything else? I haven't missed anything else? Okay, wow. Announcements, Marine Corps reserves Toys for Tots drop-off box located at Town Hall. I did speak to the gentleman that came by today that picked up some of the toys that were there, and I asked him if they were gonna continue to keep the box here for a while, and he did say that they would. So I thanked him very much and congratulated them on the work that they're doing. So, we still have some time to get the toys for the Toys for Tots into the box at Town Hall. Flu shots are available to Raleigh residents on Mondays and Wednesdays from 2 to 4 p.m. at the Annex. Contact the Council on Aging or the Health Department for more information. The town has the following vacancies: fence viewer, 3 positions, wood lumber and bark inspector, Zoning Board of Appeals Associates, 2 open seats, Historical Commission, Historic District Commission, 3 seats, Parks and Recreation Committee, 2 seats. For more information on these positions, please contact the Selectmen's office at 948-2372. Raleigh Food Pantry is in need of donations. The food pantry is open Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and Thursdays from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. And you can also drop off items at the library.
Give you a motion, give you a motion to adjourn.
Give me a second. Whoop.
Motion to adjourn with 2 seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed. We are adjourned.
Sounds good.